130 horsepower, hurling it down the straight, one corner to go. You can put a cigarette paper between the wheels.
He's so close, he's wheel to wheel once again, but it is a very tricky part of the track. Oh, and he wanted to go down the inside.
I can't believe it.
And if you no longer go for a gap that exists, you're no longer racing driver.
Greetings, Formula One fans. Thank you for joining us at the LookBack podcast for the first ever Formula One LookBack Show. Canadian Grand Prix 2011. I'm Nick, and I'm sitting here with
Phil.
And Will.
It's good to join you.
Excited.
It's good for you to join me. It's good for the listeners to join us. We're back here, like I said, for the first ever Formula One LookBack Show, the Canadian Grand Prix 2011. If you don't already, go follow us on Instagram and Twitter at the LookBack Show. Send us a message on Instagram and Twitter as well, at the LookBack Show, or send us an email over at thelookbackshow@gmail.com. If you're not already, go head over to iTunes, Spotify, Podbean, YouTube, Google Play. Hit the subscribe button. Leave 5 stars if you like the show. We appreciate that. Leave us a comment, preferably a good one, like I always say on the roundtable, right, boys? Let us know what you think. Head over to teespring.com/thelookback. We got all kinds of new merch on there: t-shirts, mugs, stickers, Formula One stuff, pro wrestling stuff. But check out the Formula One stuff because that's what we're here for today. But yeah, we're back with a new and improved The Look Back podcast, the first ever Formula One Look Back show. How did you guys feel about this Grand Prix that we decided to look back at tonight here today for the listeners? It was a long haul, and we sat in for all of it.
Oh, yeah. What was it? Total race distance ended up being 4 hours, 4 minutes, and 39 seconds?
You got that right, Will.
Right
That's
on
right on the nose, and he didn't even look at his notes for that.
Didn't even need a
I
note.
didn't even write it down.
Oh.
He had to one-up me.
Honestly, this made me excited. Really excited to do this show, to watch this race, and have a good race to look back at.
It was a great race.
Oh, amazing. It's debatably talked about as one of the top races of the decade, if not Formula One history.
Oh, it was so good. Like we wanted to talk about this, but I actually have memories of watching this race live with my dad the day it happened. And on that last lap, when Button passed Vettel, because me and my dad at the time, we hated Vettel because he won everything. He made the races boring. It's uncommon to see him win races by like 30 seconds at the time.
He had won 2 championships already in a row at that point.
And it just, we see him come in and he spins, then Button goes up the inside from the 6 pit stops, the hard charge from the back of the grid, and I swear it was like we saw someone return at WrestleMania. We jumped out of our seats and we're like, yeah!
Definitely a memorable moment. I'm sure we'll come to that later in the show, but yeah, it was awesome for us to, I don't know, sit through the long haul and actually endure everything that anyone like yourself, endured when they were watching this live in 2011. June 12th, 2011, I might add. I might as well get into the track stats that we talked about a little bit in our preview show, that we let people know kind of what the Look Back show was going to be and everything that we've posted on Instagram and Twitter, but might as well get into it. So, Canadian Grand Prix 2011, location was Montreal, Quebec. I'm sure most people know that. And the circuit was Circuit Gilles Villeneuve. This is a track that they've been racing at since 1978. I had to look that one up, but
that was before it was known as Gilles Villeneuve Circuit. Though.
Yes, at that time it was, I can't even remember the name of it right now. It was something to do, it was a saint in Montreal of some kind.
I think so, something like that.
I can't remember the exact name at the moment. I'm sure I can Google it once we get talking here, but I just wanted to kind of say that one there. It's been since 1978. It's 42 races, because they've been going there since 1978 all the way up until currently when we're recording this in 2020. But it's kind of a bit of an asterisk because there was 2 years in there that they didn't go, so it's technically only 40. So I'm curious if they're gonna talk about the 40th anniversary coming up this year.
Yeah, it'd be interesting. Yeah. Speaking of, I guess we have to mention those 2 races that they didn't go to our local track, Mossport.
Yeah, well, no. Though actually, no.
Oh,
One of them was
wrong?
2009, where they didn't have a Canadian Grand Prix at all.
Oh, okay.
And the other one I can't remember. We'd have to Google it off the top of my head. But no, when they were going to Mossport, local track to us, 15 minutes up the road where I do my karting, is prior to 1978.
Okay.
So they were racing at that track through whatever the 60s, I guess, when they started there, upwards into
Okay.
78.
Excuse me, I am wrong.
When they started going, no worries, man, started going to Circuit de Villeneuve. But yeah, so track, like I said, Circuit de Villeneuve, the date was June 12th, 2011. Will mentioned already this was the longest F1 race in history at 4 hours, 4 minutes, and 39 seconds.
I think it's also like 39.5 something. It's like 39 and a half seconds.
What's
Just
30? Oh,
You gotta add that half second.
that extra half second at the
We
end.
do
there.
the
We're
triple
F1.
digits. We're
We're
triple
Formula
digits in
One.
the
Every
decimal
half
spot.
second counts.
Yeah. Every thousandth of a
There
second.
you go.
That is very true, and I mean, so 70 laps, 305.2. I didn't write all the decimal places in there because obviously I wasn't on the ball. But yeah, 70 laps, 305.2 kilometers, and it's got a track length of 4.3 kilometers, 4.36 kilometers. And then there was something else I was going to get in there, but I can't. Longest race in F1 history. Like I had said, most wins here, Lewis Hamilton and Michael Schumacher are tied as of late. Like I said, in 2020 for the drivers, and the constructors is 14 with Ferrari. And that's for the Canadian Grand Prix. 12 would be for Circuit de Villeneuve, but 14 for the ones outside of that. But I'm going to get Phil to kind of get into some of the engine stats and regulations for the season in 2011 and kind of this era of Formula One.
So I'm just going to kind of ramble off here, and just feel free to stop me or ask any questions that, you guys might have about the technical specs. But as for this era, was actually, they were using the V8 engines that were all naturally aspirated 2.4 liters. Their max revs is actually 18,000, which for some people is not a lot, but for other people is a hell of a lot.
Like, not a lot for a Formula One car, but a lot for any car that isn't a Formula One car? Is that what you mean?
Yes, but
Okay.
also you got to think about that there is other things out there, like engines that do spin a lot faster than 18,000. But that's,
For example, what do you mean?
Motorcycle engines?
some motorcycles can, they do rev up there as high, but to hear 18,000, it's still like a extravagant number.
Okay, that's
You're-
I just
you're
didn't know
big-
what the point you were trying.
I guess for some context, you're a big Honda guy.
Yeah.
You have your Civic.
Yeah.
What's the red line on your Civic?
Half of that, 9,000.
There you go.
A modern day Civic, even less, like 6,000, 7,000 RPMs. So
Wow. Okay, so that does put it
let's
into
put it
perspective.
at that. A built car, like a built drag car Honda, would be revving at like 9,000, depending on their power range. To be honest, I've heard Hondas can go up to 10,000, and I've seen it. But that's a different story. The power output actually for these vehicles at the time was 750 with about plus 80 more horsepower when they're enabling KERS.
Good old curves.
Yeah, with approximately 258 foot-pounds of torque.
You prefer the KERS?
I think I do prefer the curves.
Really?
Yeah, I just find it's a bit more strategic, I find, in the race to depend where you want to deploy it and how you use it per lap, instead of just having the power all the time from the MGUK.
And just having to manage the recharge rate, I guess, at that point.
Yeah, and I guess for context, for anyone that doesn't know what KERS is, it's the kinetic energy
Recovery?
recovery system. Where basically it would take the heat in the brakes every time you would brake, and it would use that to charge a battery, and the battery would then be used to
Deploy the extra power
Yes.
on demand.
Which still happens in modern Formula
Yes.
One, but the difference being,
it's a different system and how they use it.
and it's manually deployed.
Mm-hmm.
That's the biggest thing, is what I was asking you about, because I think I prefer it the way it is currently in modern Formula One, where it's being deployed, electronically, I guess you could say, or
electronically controlled, but it's also
by the internal computer of the engine.
but also user input at that point. You got to remember there's the hot lap mode, there's medium, low, and all that. But that's how you also get your regeneration back. If you put it on low, you can start
Regenerate more. Yeah, that makes sense. Rather than just having
that.
a
In the
straight.
modern day, you see the red lights blinking. It means they're harvesting that energy.
yeah.
at the back.
Whereas in the race we watched, it happened to be a wet race. The red lights are just blinking there for driver safety.
Of course, yeah.
Visibility.
The biggest thing I was trying to say was just the fact that back then you were deploying this extra battery energy that was generated from the brakes manually when you wanted,
Yes.
at any moment, not in a specific area of
and
the
you
track.
had a certain amount per lap, all that.
Exactly, yeah.
So for comparison, for the power outputs, as for now as of 2019 cars. They're right now currently running approximately 875 to 1,000 horsepower with an additional 160 at 15,000 RPM. So they've dropped the RPMs, but they've also increased the actual output of the engines.
Does that make them more fuel efficient? Or
I would say maybe yes.
It's a smaller engine, 1.5 liter in the current generation.
Yep.
Turbo.
Well, we know the newer engines are more fuel efficient anyway, but would that specifically, the lower RPMs, be a contributing
not necessarily
factor?
lower RPMs. Not necessarily.
But is that what you were asking?
Kind of. It was just kind of. I was just trying to think of, because in this season of 2011, we also have the no refueling rule like we do now.
Yeah.
But that was only introduced like a season and a half ago, or just half a season ago at this point.
What's that? No refueling?
No refueling.
Yeah, I thought they.
Oh my
first,
God, no!
I thought they first introduced it in either.
They didn't have refueling in this race.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I don't think they introduced no refueling in Canada 2010. So it's only been a year.
I thought you were saying that they introduced it 2 years ago, as of today.
No.
That's why I was confused.
It got a little confusing. They actually only are able to fuel up to 150 liters of fuel.
In this race?
Yep. In these regulations of the 2011.
So what do they have in the current?
Current, actually,
No idea. Doesn't matter.
Yeah, I didn't look it up at that. It's a good one, though. It's a
I
good
want to
question.
say 80 liters, but
it's irrelevant to this conversation.
This is true.
This is actually the same generation that we get to enjoy the beautiful sound of the blown diffuser. For some people that may not know, the blown diffuser is an advanced diffuser system for these F1 cars. Now, to break it down for you, to make it simple, a diffuser takes away the positive pressure underneath a car, which reduces downforce. So when you have a big section underneath a car, that is creating positive pressure, which lifts the car. With a diffuser, it cuts that away and streamlines the air out. What F1 was able to do and advance it was use the exhaust systems to create turbulent air on the back of the diffuser to create increased downforce, but also get the wake away from the wheels outwards.
It's incredible technology. I'm assuming this started with the Braun in 2009, and that was the first guys to try and start doing this?
Well,
and at this scale.
Yeah. But you got to remember, Renault was actually using this system of a blown diffuser just a little bit different in the late 80s.
Oh, really?
So they were using it for a long time, and it was actually common to have the exhaust gases be shot out onto the diffuser and just let out into the environment. So that's why you never really noticed where the exhaust was coming out from.
But you weren't getting that sound.
No.
Then was that just
it
because
was
of
the
speed?
turbulent air. Yeah, the air wasn't there. The downforce, the ground effects.
They weren't. Okay, that makes sense. The cars.
And I
back
do believe
then
when
didn't have-
Lotus first tried to do it, it wasn't the most successful, so they didn't necessarily do it in all their cars. It was a bit iffy at the time. So the idea was there, but I don't think they really truly
execution.
went to, yeah.
Fair enough.
These transmissions are actually only a 7-speed semi-automatic transmission. So when I mean semi-automatic, they're actually using parts from conventional manual transmission and conventional automatic transmission, which I would believe would be clutch packs and instead of just straight cut gears,
Yeah.
or helical cut gears.
And so, explain that dumb that down a little bit for me and
So,
maybe some of the listeners
to
who
dumb
don't.
it down,
How does a Formula One car in 2011, a piece of technology that's that high up, be using road car automatic gear technology?
Well, you can't really think of it. It's going to be a road car because it's going to be different types of materials and metals and heat dissipation, different types of fluid in the transmission too. It's all going to play effect. But to break it down,
scratch the road car thing. Then forget that. I just meant like how is a Formula One car using an automatic engine? That's
that's the thing where it's a semi-automatic. It's not necessarily using an automatic transmission because an automatic has gears, but it has to shift through the gears like evenly without an input, right?
Yeah.
That's why you just put it in drive and you drive.
And
and through pressures and using your torque converter, which actually creates multiplication of the torque, will change pressures, and that's how your car can sense what gear you should be going. It
based
changes
on
ratios,
RPMs and stuff too.
Yeah, engine speed and vehicle speed. So with F1, what they're doing, they're able to use manual shift points on these clutch baskets that are able to withstand, I'm assuming, temperature, friction and abuse at the end of the day, right? Because you
Yeah.
think about how many shifts they do in a race is over. Like I
Yeah,
don't even want
a
to
lot,
try it.
a lot.
It's a ridiculous amount.
1,000 more.
Yeah. So with that, I also see that instead of a gear synchronizer hopping between two gears, it's easier just to energize a basket full of clutch packs to shift the car.
Okay, I kind
So
of.
that's why they still have a clutch on start, but they don't need to use a clutch when they're shifting.
It's
So
just switching.
it's from standing start, you pull clutch,
Yep.
throttle, shift, first
Done.
gear.
Go.
And then from there, it's just up, down,
Up, down, up, down, up, down.
Just like okay,
yeah.
I know what you mean.
But then that's why you see in the race, was a button that went into the pit, and you're like, oh, did he stall it? He might have stalled it because when he went up to the stop, instead of popping into neutral right before he stopped the car, he might have not. And it was still in gear, stopped the car fully. Guess what? Your engine speed just went to 0. There is nothing stopping that.
And
That's
when
a
you're gonna
totally
stall.
connected system. Yep, you stalled the car. So it's just same as no difference as you going up to a red light in a manual vehicle and just pushing the brake but no clutch. You're gonna feel the car coming to a stop, but eventually it's just gonna completely stop, and you're gonna notice your engine's off. Yeah.
This is good to learn. This is why I like having you here for this technical stuff. It's nice.
Yeah,
Do they not still use a similar system where it's clutch
absolutely.
line?
They still use a semi-automatic. It's just a 8-speed now, right?
Okay.
So that was the only thing I kind of wanted to point out, that it's a 7-speed now. They don't have that extra.
How similar is that to? Because this is the only semi-automatic clutch I've ever used. Is on like a 4-wheeler or a quad, where you're driving. Because the quad that I grew up driving as a kid was a semi-automatic, so it no clutch, but I still had to kick up and down.
Yeah,
to
so
shift gears.
it's a very similar system still. It would just be energizing and distant energizing different packs.
You're
to
just
change the ratio of the drive and driven gears.
Okay, this is something I feel like we're gonna have to get into even more off air.
Let's see.
How do shift gear?
Yeah.
So the actual only engine manufacturers in this race were Renault, Mercedes, Ferrari, and Cosworth, which is surprising compared to our current day and age with a few different teams.
Well, I mean, it's just one swapped out, right? The only difference is you're swapping out Cosworth for Honda.
I guess, yeah. Because we still have Ferrari, obviously.
Yeah.
We still have Mercedes.
Still Mercedes.
We still have Renault. So you're just swapping out the Cosworth for the Honda.
Why did I feel like there was more? Was it a different generation?
Maybe
you're thinking
there
of
was
different
different generations where there was a lot more than 4.
2012 or 2010, they also wanted to bring back Ford, but it wasn't a Cosworth or something like that.
But I mean, if you go back farther to 2007, 8, you have Honda, you have Toyota, you have BMW, you have other companies.
Yep.
But then 2008 financial, that changed a lot.
The housing crisis. Yeah.
No, it was just the States, but still, it affected companies huge.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah,
that's
no,
why Honda had to go out.
Exactly. And then they ended up coming back in 15, right? So Honda ended up coming back, and I guess, did Cosworth leave in 15? Is that, or how?
I think Cosworth had been out for a while at that point, or
So-
that they've only been supplying a backmarker team because of they got the rights or something to it. They got
Okay.
whatever.
K-trim or something like that?
Nah, more
Anyway.
like Spiker or whatever. but
Oh,
whatever.
okay.
Yeah, that was pretty much it for the technical specs on this, because these regulations kind of stay throughout the year until 2013, other than the blown diffuser being banned as of Silverstone of the 2011.
Which we found out in this
In the
race.
race,
Brundle
yeah.
was talking about it on.
I knew it was definitely banned by 2012. I just wasn't sure when it was enforced.
And it was completely banned at that point? Like,
Yeah.
starting in Silverstone, you couldn't use a blown diffuser
Yeah, you
anymore?
were not able. That's why they were mentioning that Red Bull was going to have a very hard time after Silverstone.
But they got the Vortex diffuser.
Yeah, which is still
Was that
creates
the
a
same?
similar effect, but not as aggressive.
Instead
Was
of
it legal?
questionably.
Loophole, gray area.
I don't mean that. I mean, like, did they use it for the remainder of
Yes.
the 2011 season?
Yes.
Okay, that's all I meant by legal. Like, they got away with it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
It was the blown diffuser to Braun in 09, the Vortex diffuser to Red Bull in 11.
Okay, understandable. Well, that's been good. Thank you for doing that, Phil. That's something we're going to try and get into. Well, we'll definitely get it into every Formula One Look Back show. A little bit of track stats from me, and then some engine and regulation stats from Phil to kind of, set the stage for this year and paint the picture. Or give me your metaphor for what,
Set the grid, bro.
Yeah, there you go. Set the grid. That's probably the best one
All right.
for what we're about to do. And then Will's going to give us the qualifying
Layout.
rundown, basically kind of how the grid was set before the beginning of this race, and then the three of us will dive in and kind of go talk about our favorite moments from the race and lap by lap, work our way chronologically till the end, and then get the moments of the night at the end and all the other stuff. But yeah, over to you now, Will, for the qualifying list there.
All right. Well, starting on pole position for this race was Sebastian Vettel in the Red Bull Racing Renault. In second place was Fernando Alonso in the Ferrari, followed by his teammate Felipe Massa. Mark Webber in fourth, also in the Red Bull. Lewis Hamilton, the first placed McLaren, in fifth. Nico Rosberg, his future teammate, in sixth in the Mercedes. Jensen in seventh in the McLaren. Schumacher, when he was back out of his, I guess, couple year sabbatical.
Coming out of retirement, yeah. Is this his first year back?
No, he raced
2010. Oh, he was in 10.
10, yeah, because I was after when it first became Mercedes.
Yeah.
So he was there in 8th place. Nick Heidfeld then in 9th place in the Renault, followed by the Russian Vitaly Petrov in 10th. He's also his teammate. Then we have Force India Mercedes with Paul di Resta in 11th. Pastor Maldonado in the Williams Cosworth in 12th. Kamui Kobayashi, Sauber Ferrari in 13th. Adrian Sutil, Force India 14th. Sebastian Buemi, Toro Rosso Ferrari in 15th. Rubens Barrichello, Williams Cosworth in 16th. Followed by Pedro de la Rosa, which we have to note, Pedro de la Rosa, who is replacing Sergio Perez, who in the previous round at Monaco in a red flag incident, got in an incident, was medically cleared to race, but after the first practice series, they said session, they said he wasn't feeling too good. So here is Pedro to replace him for this race.
Sergio was looking very young in the back of the garage.
Checo.
One more thing before you keep going, I just wanted to say when I was watching, because I took some time to watch the Monaco Grand Prix a little bit before as well, and there was a nice moment in that race when Barrichello came right up on Schumacher and went right around him. I think coming out of, I'm not even at the swimming pool section, I could be wrong, but I thought of you immediately, Will, when I seen Barrichello pass Schumacher like that. It was an immediate thought. But
all right, continuing on, we have Jarno Trulli in the Lotus Renault. Now, one thing to note is that there's the Team Lotus Renault, which is Renault.
Yes.
As we know it, Renault now. And then there is also the Lotus, which is powered by Renault. So
which is the Trulli and Kovalainen.
Yes, which was the green car.
The green car. That's so weird because the other car is the black and gold Renault.
Yeah,
but that's the Lotus colors.
The black
kind of.
It was the Johnny Walker colors.
Yeah,
but it was like
okay, fair enough.
Like the team was sponsored or something by Lotus. It's a bit confusing, but then there's the actual Team Lotus, which had Renault engines.
If anybody wants a full breakdown, not that I want to send you somewhere else, but WTF1 has a really good breakdown video of every team since the dawn of teams to all the way to now, and kind of explaining what teams bought out by another team and became this team.
Yeah. So Jarno it was Jamie Alguersuari. I butchered that name in the Toro Rosso Ferrari in 18th. Jarno Trulli and Heikki Kovalainen in 19th and 20th for the Lotus Renault. Vittorio Liuzzi. I still can't get that name.
That's good.
HRT Cosworth 21st. Timo Glock. Is that Glock in the Virgin Cosworth in 22nd. Narain Karthikeyan in 23rd in the HRT Cosworth. And then qualifying 24th, but starting from pit lane, was Jerome D'Ambrosio in the Virgin. And it must be noted that Jerome D'Ambrosio did not set a lap within the 107% rule. However, due to his pace in the practice sessions, the stewards did decide to let him race this race.
Wow.
That's interesting.
It is very interesting. And what was the top... sorry to cut you off there, Phil. What was the qualifying time there for Vettel? 1:13.0?
I'm trying to see here. Yeah, 1:13.014. That was the pole time.
Cool, sweet. Sorry, I was trying to find the pole time for 2019 to try and compare, but I think it was somewhere in the 1:10, 1:09 range.
That's not bad. Only 4 seconds between 8 years.
Yeah, but that is that's a decent amount of time over the course.
Yeah.
You times that by however many laps.
But I mean, when you think about it, that's like 8 years for 4 seconds. That's not bad. Like, these cars are still putting up a decent fight.
It's also V8 versus V6.
Yeah, different power units.
Yeah,
different.
but you heard the power differences though.
This is true.
And the aero differences throughout the years changed.
Oh,
dude.
and there's more.
Huge
There's
difference.
more downforce now, more power now, more efficient now.
I wanted to ask, how does that 100%, 107% rule work? How do they determine that?
Well, what they do is they take the top time in the first session, because really, if you're not fast enough, you're not making it into session 2 for qualifying. So they take the fastest time in the first session. They slow it down essentially what would be 107% of that lap. In this case, the 107% time would be a 118.989. However, Jerome D'Ambrosio qualified with a 119.4, so he's slower than 107%, so he's too slow to make the grid.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay. Yeah, I just needed some clarification on that part.
No, and that's good for the list there. We'll get Will to kind of give us a rundown after we discuss the race itself afterwards of where everybody finished. But I didn't get it in. I wanted to let everybody know as well. Martin Brundle and David Coulthard on commentary. It was kind of cool to get Brundle being the main guy. I never really, I feel like a complete rook, but I never really knew that he did, full-time commentary gigs in 2011, 12, 13, whatever it was that he was doing that for. I don't know when Crofty came in. But yeah, it was cool, and it was nice to get a different duo. That's one of the things I'm looking forward to in doing all these look-back shows that we're going to be doing going forward, is finding out the different commentary teams throughout the year. I'm hoping that we get a Murray Walker, James Hunt, if we can go far back enough and find one of those.
And if you're looking for possibly a new commentator for 2021, call me.
Yeah, check out ARC
Yeah.
Racing. If anybody's listened to the roundtable in the past, you might know what that means, but maybe we'll get Will to shout it out at the end of the show.
Yeah.
Do you guys want to get into the little bit kind of the beginning formation laps, and then we'll go lap by lap and get some thoughts?
Sure.
How about those shit graphics at the beginning?
Yeah, they
You actually
definitely
did
show
bring
their
them up,
age.
eh?
They do show their age now. I used to think they were clean when I first saw them, right?
Yeah.
But that now compared to what we have now, it's
Even just the change since Liberty Media 2 years ago, those graphics, the jump that they had from 2016 to 17, 18, I think it was. Or no, probably 17 to 18, but either way.
It's just so gray. So gray, and I get the simplicity of it. It's gray and so
it's scrolling at the bottom,
side-scrolling.
at the bottom instead of constantly being on the side of the screen.
It makes a big difference, I find, when it's on the bottom, because you said, not that I don't like NASCAR or North American racing, but it feels very North American
it feels different
to do it that way. And I even meant like the graphics, like the opening shots of the city, and then we got like the Circuit de Villeneuve track layout and all that kind of
just
stuff.
a helicopter.
It just looked very like you could have told me it was from 2003, and I wouldn't have really batted an eye at you. But to say that was from 2011, I was a little shocked. But I don't know. Maybe 2011 is slowly getting farther and farther away. So
man, it still feels like it was 2 years ago.
I totally agree with you. But I was in college at that time, so it definitely wasn't. But yeah, shit graphics, like I said at the beginning. I wanted to kind of make a little side note. I've been to this race 3 times, so I can give you that perspective as far as like what it's like to be at this track and experience the atmosphere, not from 2011, obviously, but just going there in general. It's an amazing track to get to, as far as getting from the city and back and forth to the track. The metro and everything is set up very, very well. And then I got a little story I wanted to tell a little bit later, kind of when we talk about some of the rain and the delays and everything, with a few guys that I met. Shout out to Younger with him 2 years ago, and I'll get into that later. But these cars are incredible. I just had a few things I wanted to get off my chest before we really dive in lap 1, but I love the look of these cars. I was really, really digging.
And I have to bring it up,
the body
especially
styles.
The McLaren. I have to bring it up. Ever since I noticed it, it's different.
The side pods.
Yeah, if you want to know what I'm talking about, look at any other car from the 2011 F1 grid. All the side pods, they're flat on the top, right? When they connect to, I guess, the air intake, what it would be?
Yeah, it would be some type of air intake, air duct.
They're all flat. The side pod, it comes up, it curves around, and it's flat on the top. The McLaren, it comes up, but then it dips down like at a fairly significant amount, and then it curves 90 degrees, then connects to the air pod.
Yeah, it totally changes the look of the cars, which is what I think you said, and you're right. If you start looking at the car and you look at those first rather than maybe the front wing or the rear wing, it kind of changes the way you look at the whole car.
Like, you get that 35, 45 like degree angle at the car, and you'll notice what I'm talking about.
Yep.
Even when you look at it head on, you'll notice from like where the suspension is to all the way to the back of the car to the spoiler, it's just straight. There's nothing there. Normally you would see at the top of the side pod there, but it's not. And it's jarring and it's different, and I can't help but not look at it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I like the look of almost all these cars, even the real high front nose. I don't mind that. And the skinny, I mean, maybe it's because I'm used to now watching so much of the wider cars over the last few years, but I enjoy these skinnier, kind of more harder to control, screaming loud, not sticking to the ground cars.
I think we need narrower cars back.
I don't know if I want to go quite that far and say that, because I really enjoy the cars we have now. I just think this is cool to look back at, like we do.
Well, my reasoning is when you look back at a track like Monaco, think of how many more passes you're going to see with just narrower cars on that track.
Oh, absolutely. I just think if I had to choose between the width and the length being shortened in current times and modern Formula One, I would want it to be the length of the car that is shortened first before we decide that we're going to make the width of them go back. You know what I mean? Because the cars are too long nowadays, and even these cars here in 2011 are very long too compared to 2007 and 8. But they just keep getting longer and longer, and I don't know how much. I still
feel
helping.
like 08 was the pinnacle of the
looking. You love that. I don't know. I
just loved seeing the winglets, and
for me, it's got to be like 88 or 89, 90 as far as the look of the car. I don't think that they ever got better looking than that.
Fair enough.
But I know what you mean, because those 2008 cars are very, like you said in past roundtables when you were on the shows.
They just look like they belong in a wind tunnel, and
I
love it.
Exactly. Yeah, all the winglets everywhere, the little horns on the McLaren one, and the front wings
wing going over itself.
Exactly. Yeah, I know. I totally know what you mean. But yeah, these cars here in 2011 I thought looked great, and I don't know, worth talking about. But the fucking monsoon that this race was, man. And like I said, I want to make sure the listeners.
I guess I should just point out it was only 80% humidity.
Yeah, I was going to get to all of that too. Don't worry.
Okay. It was 80 at the beginning of the race.
Geez, I totally like you're up, Will, because you keep getting me off my train of thought, so I'm making you do this.
All right, so just to cap a point, 80% humidity, as you stated, only 19 degrees Celsius. I don't know what that is in Fahrenheit.
Yeah, 20 degrees Celsius track temp is what it said at the beginning.
Yeah. But if 80% humidity with around 20 degrees Celsius, that's going to be one hot day.
It is, depending on how many clouds are in the sky and how much precipitation you're getting too, right?
All right, so did you want to start? If we're going to stump into the start, is there any other just information you want to get in, or are we just going to jump right into it?
I just wanted to note that they had DRS disabled, obviously, at the beginning, but we'll get into that with how the race started.
Yeah. All right, so it started behind the safety car because it was wet at the start, which some people didn't quite agree with. Like I have here that Eddie Jordan didn't like the fact that it was starting behind safety car. And Martin Brundle didn't like that fact. And
they all mentioned those thoughts later, though. That didn't come at the beginning. You didn't hear those.
Yeah.
Those quotes from those guys.
Yeah, but it was just that some people weren't happy with it. Some people were okay with it. DRS disabled. I do have, and then at the start behind the safety car, and I think we only got started at lap 4 or 5.
Yep, lap 4.
So around lap 4.
Well, yeah, yes. Safety car in on 4.
Yeah, safety car was in on 4, and right at the start we have Lewis Hamilton tapping Mark Webber going into turn 1. Webber spins around.
I find that funny because what I have in my notes is that Lewis said it was fine out there. and then the first thing that happens is that he taps into Mark Webber. I just thought that was funny because that's the one thing I was Lewis. Oh yeah, it's fine out here.
He had Rihanna on his mind, that's why.
Yeah, well, he didn't know she was there yet.
Oh, I'm sure he did.
Maybe, yeah, probably.
He knew. No, okay, I'm sorry. I'll correct that. He knew Drake was waiting for him. That's why.
Fuck Drake. But yeah, so keep going, or either one of you.
All right, and well, I have my next thing being on lap 8. Do you have anything between then and that?
I have a few. Well, the good pass, Schumacher's pass on the outside on lap 5. That was like right at the beginning there.
On turn 1, is that the one coming out of the S's there, and then going into turn 2?
I believe so. I remember you were like, "Oh, that was a nice one."
Around Webber?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. That was one of my favorite moves of the whole race. If I'm completely.
Oh yeah. I remember. What
it was when he didn't really have it stuck until they got to turn 1, 2, 3, because they went through the S's. It looked like he was going to have him. Schumacher was going to have Weber, and then Weber kind of started to fight back on him. And then as they go under the bridge there and they make that right-hand turn, Weber kind of had to either crash into him or let him go. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That was honestly one of my favorite. I'm not even just saying this. That was one of my favorite moves of the whole race.
It was a very good move.
And this was a race of 2 races, as we'll get to with the red flag. And
Yeah.
Kind of felt like we watched 2 races.
It felt like the length of it, yeah.
Well, that's what I was going to say earlier is that I forgot. Is I just want to let the listeners know again that we listened and watched all of this.
No fast forward.
No fast forward, 4 hours and 27 minutes. We made sure that, we don't want to give you the half-ass look back here.
We saw everything.
We made sure we watched it all, and you're getting our 100% opinions and thoughts as we do here at the Look Back podcast.
All right, so I have the lap 8. All right.
I think we all know what's going on there.
Yeah, Button hits Lewis, which causes a safety car.
Yeah, and that was the first of many.
The first of many. I don't have any. That's going to cause is that his first or second pit stop that's caused? I believe
for
that's
Button?
For Button. I think it was his second because he pits to inters first.
At the very beginning, yeah. Like on lap 2.
Yeah, he pits for inters. And then he goes through the field, hits Lewis, so he has to pit again because now he doesn't have any damage, but they have to pit to check the damage, I think it was.
Who's that?
Front wing?
Button. Was it front wing?
Yeah, puncture.
Lewis had a puncture, and then that's why his tire was all fucked up, and he went off.
Yeah, Button needed a front wing, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, yes, Button needed a front wing, so that's going to cause 2 stops for Button.
And DNF for Lewis.
Yep, he's out.
Out.
All right, then I have lap 11. Here, a Weber's downshift problem, which they thought was a problem with the steering wheel, which I thought was actually kind of interesting.
Yeah, because they said
it's directly related to
was that
the
the
steering
commentary
wheel.
saying that, or was that the radio? I can't remember.
I think
it was commentary.
The commentary said that, but I'm pretty sure in the pit stop they did change the steering wheel.
Because it was longer.
It was a longer pit stop, yeah.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. And then Button got a penalty on lap 12, no?
Yep. He got the drive to, I think, 12 or 13, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
All right. Then one thing I did wanted to a note about this race and the current regulations, I guess, was how
like the regulations in 2011.
Yeah, when they started the race, they were allowed to overtake at a safety car line and not the start-finish line.
Mm-hmm. Safety car line before the start-finish line.
Yeah. So they could pass going into the last chicane here at Canada before they cross the start-finish line.
During the safety car or after the safety car went in?
Safety car comes in, Bettel backs them all up or whatever at the hairpin.
Yep, no, just
and
clarify.
then they can get side by all you want, and then as soon as they cross that line, you can make the pass.
Yep.
Before the start finish. And I just thought that was interesting with the regulations because even in today, it's at the start finish line, right?
You can't pass until the start finish line. I don't know what changed about that and why they would. Maybe something happened. There was an incident that caused something that made it worse early on. I don't know.
All right. Well, I have lap 13. We Buttons drive through. Am I good so far? Anything you want to add in here, Phil?
I'm just kind of following along. Yeah. Lap 13, 14, Button has a pass at the hairpin.
The Button penalty, though, why? I can't remember now. What did he do to get the drive-through penalty?
I believe it was speeding behind the safety car.
That's exactly what it was. Fair enough.
All right, and then I have lap 15, it was a dry line starting to form.
Yeah, and I just wanted to say, I'm not just saying this because I'm a homer for Mercedes, but they were having a pretty good start to this race for not being a team back then that typically performed very well against some of the top teams that were the top teams in 2011. That was something I thought I'd at least kind of bring up at least.
All right, now I believe I don't have anything for the next 4 laps here until lap 19. I'm not.
I got something on 17, but it was basically just the fact that Button was on a fucking tear.
Yeah, that's right.
Flying through the field.
Lap 15, Button at the hairpin. It was every pass that there was a hairpin.
That was his double pass?
Yeah. Yeah. Was that the double, or I'm just mentioning the fact that.
Yeah, I just made a little jot note there that Button's on fire right now.
2 passes. There was
the double pass when.
Well, no, one on lap 14 and one on lap 15. Both of them were at the hairpin. Button was able to pass people.
Those inters were absolute rocket
with
ships.
Weber and then with someone else on the second one.
Yeah, 14, 15. That makes sense that I would have wrote that on 17 if he was making those moves.
Yeah.
Alonso, I noticed, had a nice merge back onto the track after his pit stop. He just fit right back into there very well. He did a good job of squeezing himself in. to some high traffic
All right.
racing.
So then I have here on lap 19, Michael Schumacher makes a pit stop for the Inters.
On 19?
On 19, but on the same lap, the rain starts to pick back up.
I was just going to say, this is when we had Monsoon City
Oh, yeah.
coming down on the track like
And
I had never seen before.
You were starting to see a little twinkle of power from Button too, because he had another good pass on turn 7 on lap 19 right before
this all went down.
Yeah.
And I noticed, because obviously this race has been talked about for years and years and stuff, and you know kind of what's going to happen in this race, but I had noticed how dark it was getting around the circuit, and then you said, like, once the rain had started, you're like, oh yeah, it's super dark. And I was like, wow, I should have realized 5 minutes ago when I saw the dark clouds and I felt like it was getting darker that this rain is about to start, but I didn't. But I don't know. I just wanted to bring that up.
Yeah, and the torrential rain starts, so they called for the safety car for the rain, and then I have Alonso, Button, and Vettel all pit for the full wets.
And Weber.
Okay. So I have that on lap 20.
Yep.
But then on lap 25, the infamous red flag.
Yeah, but I was just before that, lap 19, I just wanted, because I know we were keeping track of them the whole time, Button went in for another pit stop number 3
Okay.
at that time. So that was the third stop so far for him. And then we had Vettel on the radio saying that this track is undrivable. This track is too wet, and we should not be driving in these conditions. Do not restart the race. And the team kind of saying, okay, we will pass that information on to Charlie. And then the commentators kind of made a comment about how, well, you don't really need to pass the information on. Charlie can hear Vettel. He knows what's being said right now anyway. Kind of calling, I should get a sound clip of that. Calling, as much as RIP Charlie, you're the fucking man. As much as it's funny, not funny, but going back to Mexico 2017 when, fuck you, Charlie, and Vettel on the radio, knowing him saying that simply because he knows the race directors are listening anyway, just to make a point. Anyway. Yeah, I literally had at this point, right before the red flag, I'm like, this race is crazy. This is nuts. I have that written right in my book.
But yeah, that 25, because nothing happens between 20 and 25 because safety car's out. 25, the red flag.
2 races in a row.
Yeah.
And they said it, but I was happy that I went and watched this Monaco Grand Prix prior to watching this, the race that took place before it. Because I knew as soon as it went to red flag, I'm like, wow, that's 2 races in a row that they went to red flag, because it was the major crash at the swimming pool, I think it was, in Monaco with Perez that we talked about earlier.
Mm-hmm. It was Perez, and I'm trying to forget who it was, because they mentioned at the start of the broadcast, someone was cleared.
It was a Lotus. It was Petrov. And I remembered it was a Lotus because I remember the black and gold Renault. Jeez, mixed up. Renault Lotus.
I told you it was going to happen.
Caterham Renault. Jesus, Cosworth. I don't know. It was Petrov because I remember the black and gold, and yes, they talked about him being cleared when we were watching the pre-show.
All right, so everyone gets out of the car. The rain's pouring for like an hour.
This is when the fun starts.
Oh yeah,
hardcore rain. Like I've never seen a sporting event on TV with this much precipitation before. Like not a tennis, not a golf match, not a football game, not a soccer match.
It got to a point that they had to lift off a drain cover, put a tube in, and start pumping out the water
because it was that full that the water had absolutely.
They could not drain it.
Insane. And
all they could do is try to move it.
Drivers getting out of their cars, some of them in their cars with like the tent around their car with an umbrella inside. Phil said it looked very comfortable.
Yeah. Well, I think it was Kobayashi was like one of the last drivers out of his car.
Yeah. He was just like, I'm not moving.
I'm in second place. I'm not moving.
But we seen so many different things happen in this 2-hour break, and I'm happy that we watched it. I really am.
A lot of little things that you would never see if you didn't experience it at that time.
No, a lot of some celebrities that you probably wouldn't expect to see. I mean, I know Formula One's a posh event, but there's some people that you might not have expected to see, like George Lucas there.
George.
Yep.
We saw Drake, Rihanna, as we mentioned earlier.
I seen Colin Farrell too. I know George Lucas is a big racing fan, so maybe a little sense for him to be there. But Colin Farrell and Rihanna, I guess Rihanna and Drake at the time. I don't know, little Afro Drake, old school. was friends
They
with.
didn't even pay attention to Drake. He just happened to be in there and walked in. They didn't even say, "Hey, that's Drake."
Yeah, because at the time he wasn't. Oh, it's Drake. Fucking let's all go crazy because it's Drake. Because
Was this Drake when he was at what was the show called?
he had probably released, because he had already done. I don't want to get too much into the Drake talk, but October's Very Own, that album and the whole Thank Me Later and that.
Okay.
That had been around because I had went to the first OVO Fest, and that was in 2010. So he was a name, but it wasn't as globally big as he was here in Toronto.
Okay.
I don't think.
I don't know if he was still in Degrassi at the time.
No, that
was definitely after.
That was over at that point.
Okay. So I did want to point out we did see a lot of the mechanics actually like smiling and having fun and like eating food on the grid,
Interacting with the camera. Yeah.
Messing around with each other, playing jokes.
Yeah.
Doing fun stuff, yeah.
Enjoying, taking the
Coming out
positivity out of what's happening, even though they're stuck in the rain.
There's nothing they can do. They have to wait for the rain. They know that, so fuck it. Why not? You know.
Yep.
Like here's everyone have a coffee. Here's some donuts, whatever. You know.
Exactly. That was Mercedes, wasn't it? The Petronas team.
No, it was McLaren.
It was McLaren. Yeah, McLaren team. Yeah, came over with a whole plate of
coffee
biscuits and bagels.
Another
and
team.
buns.
Another team. I think it was Toro Rosso had like a tray of cookies they were eating.
Yeah, they were eating cookies but you saw a bunch of different teams just had like hot coffees in their hand and.
Which you probably needed. I mean, I guess it was 20 Celsius, whatever, plus the rain and the wind. But I don't know. It probably wasn't the coldest day, but still, yeah.
You get cold.
Cool to see, you know. But back to McLaren for a second, because they were interviewing Lewis in the post, I guess his post race, because his race was over at this point. And I just thought it was interesting because he's like, yeah, you know, they asked him like, are you, what are you going to be doing? Are you going to be sticking around, this and that? And he's like, yeah, I'm going to stay for support, help support the team. And, hopefully Jensen can pick up a few points here and there. And just who would have known? Who would have thought that Jensen, would go on to win the race, we'll get to later.
The contrast of Lewis right now and probably to what Lewis there and Lewis now.
At that time, you mean?
Do you think Lewis today would have crashed out like he did here in Canada and then stayed, or would he have gone?
I think he would have stayed. I really like, if I'm put in the exact situation, if he crashed and Bottas was fighting it out for, even if it wasn't for the lead, I don't think Lewis now at this point in his career, I think he's past that. I feel like he's mature, older statesman. Wiseman wants to set a good example for the Lando Norrises and the Charles Leclercs of the world.
So you don't think his emotions or anger would take the best of him?
I don't think he would leave the track. I don't know about that, but I don't think he would leave. I think he would stay in the Mercedes garage or tent or wherever he would be around.
But he might not necessarily be visible present kind of thing.
Not necessarily, which I don't even know how much visible present he was here. I just thought it was interesting that he was, letting us know that he wasn't going anywhere, and two, talking about Button in a way that he was hoping Button would be able to salvage something out of this race.
Yeah.
Because at the time, I'm sure he hadn't talked to Button yet, so he was probably thinking, okay, this guy fucking took me out of the race, so I hope he does well, but I don't.
And then during that, you see Rihanna make her way down into the McLaren garage, start talking with Lewis and stuff. And I do want to mention a quote by old Brundle there. Bad day for Lewis, bad hair day for Rihanna.
Incredible. I wish I had some sound effects for Brundle, because that would work. But this is going to have to do. Because I like Rihanna, but God damn, Martin, that was a good comment.
And I have to give them both Coulthard and Brundle shout outs.
Oh, same.
Because I as a commentator myself, when something goes wrong or like you have to fill that time on air, they have to fill. I don't know how long, over an hour?
It was like 2.5 hours.
It was 2 for sure. 100%. It was probably closer to 2:25, 2 half an hour. Yeah. 2 half an hour. Listen to me.
2.5 hours.
Of just trying to fill the air of something, because they can't stop talking. This is an international broadcast.
And they did an incredible job, because what did I tell you? It feels like listening to a podcast.
Yeah.
Just two guys talking about Formula One.
And then they have to start calling a race later, which amps up to 11. By the time they're on those flights home, their voices are shot.
Yeah.
Like, I had to give them props, because now I know exactly what they're going through.
What that
here.
feeling would be like, yeah. I got to give props to Mercedes because those two AMGs, the silver and red AMGs that were out there just
booming around the track,
just pumping in laps, bro.
The luxury,
the time in.
The luxury Mercedes trying to clear the track.
Like, who were those people in those cars? Just like, hey, Bill, we need you to go do another lap. It's too wet. I know. We just need you to go.
That's why we
just
need
go
you.
off the racing line a little bit. Try and splash the water off to the sides.
Yeah,
do that for us.
These fans need something to see, man. Like, at least if we got you going around the track, but no, I don't know. I thought
do me a favor, throw the lights on while you're at it.
Yeah. Jeez.
And then later on, still during the red flag break, they interviewed Mark Webber at the time because he was out of the car.
Mm-hmm.
And I just want to point out, I noticed he has a really high-pitched voice here. I don't
It's just
know
not
why.
something you ever picked up on before?
Yeah. I like, we see him in the now.
As a commentator?
And it's like, that's what I expect Mark to have. And then you go back and watch this, and it's...
What does he do? The Channel 4? Is that what he works for? Channel 4?
Something like that. I don't know if it was just the mic they were using or something, or just the broadcast, how it took it, but he was a really high-pitched voice. He sounded like he was like 19.
Yeah, no, he did sound young, and he obviously was not that young because this was only, a few years away from him being
Yeah, he was almost
removed.
almost for a decade at this point.
And when did he leave? 2013?
Yeah, I think so.
Something like that?
Yeah, because that's when they brought Ricardo up.
Was 13?
So I think so.
Anyway, yeah, because I know he wasn't around that much longer after this, so he definitely wasn't that young. But keeping with the Red Bull, I wanted to say, because we were talking about Lewis, hanging out with Rihanna and Drake and all the I mean, not that he had a race to compete with anymore at that time, but still, they showed Vettel for a hot minute, and he was just head deep in the laptop with the headphones on, with the engineers, sitting at the pit lane computers, and just probably gathering information. What can I do? What can I do to get better? And where can I push more? What tires should we be on? When should we be pitting? All these different things. It just shows you that Vettel is. People say it all the time that he's very analytical, and I'm sure when guys like Kimi Räikkönen left Ferrari, they were happy to not have to be in super long, monotonous team principal post race interviews with Vettel anymore. But it's cool at the same time to see this stuff from back then when he's diving in as such a young guy,
as opposed to, and this is when it cuts to Lewis talking to Rihanna in the McLaren garage.
Exactly. Who, again, I'm a Lewis guy. I'm a Mercedes fan, but I don't know. It's cool to see both sides of the coin.
Yeah. And then not long after, we actually get them back in the car. We get the restart here.
2 hours later, like Phil said, probably 2.5.
So I want to note on the restart, Button is starting 10th, and by the time the safety car comes in, because they started the red flag on 25, it comes in on, do you happen to have that, Phil? Because I have
34.
34. Okay, so
Sorry.
safety car in at 34 because they do another safety car restart, and that's when the race gets underway.
Didn't mean to scream there.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I missed my notes there.
No worries. You were talking about when the safety car after the red flag stopped, because they came back from red flag at 25 laps and they went.
The race started at 26 and then it comes in at 34.
34. Yeah. Okay. That's
all right. So, because the next big thing or any notable thing I have down for me is on lap 37, which is the double pass in the hairpin for Button.
Oh, okay.
That's for me.
At lap 29 was the problem with Kovalin's transmission or clutch. Yeah. They were saying it sounded like it was slipping.
Yeah. Kovalainen.
Yeah. Sorry, no, I was going to say, we were talking a little bit about that when it happened, and just kind of what that really meant. And I was hoping.
Oh. Yeah, so you heard him. They were saying like it sounded like he was revving but not going anywhere. So you got to think about it as there's two. Not two, but there's a plate holding pressure against the transmission to create a power transfer. So there's a disc on the inside that makes this friction contact. And if it is spinning and not creating that full friction, binding clamping force, you're spinning but not actually rotating.
Is that what happens when you engage the clutch?
When the clutch is disengaged. When you engage the clutch, you're disengaging the transmission.
Or sorry, yeah, that's what I meant.
Yeah, so when you release the clutch, you're making it one solid unit, and you got to picture it. For example, what's the best way of saying this? You know, like a lazy Susan in the middle of a table. Little tables that you can spin.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Now I know. What
So
you mean.
if you put
like a table on top of a dinner table where you put your pepper and stuff in
peppers
the
and
middle.
whatever, you can spin it around. And people can reach it.
Lazy
So-
Susan. I've never heard of that.
I think I'm pretty sure that was. what it's
Anyway,
called.
no. I just never heard. Of it.
So you got to think of it. Picture your hand is on that Lazy Susan, and you're trying to spin it with your finger in the middle. Your finger's going to be spinning faster than what you're actually able to grab it.
Yep.
Rather than having your flat hand and turning it as one.
Ah, okay. So it's just more surface area being able to grip it.
Yes, but that surface area in the clutch is not gripping it. So the clutch is spinning, the engine speed is climbing, but the vehicle speed is not being pulled forward because there's no actual clamping force or power output.
Would it be, again, I don't know if I sound like a complete idiot to anyone like you who actually knows what they're talking about, but is it like when I'm sitting in a car and I put my foot on the clutch and then I can put my foot on the gas and I'm not going to go anywhere?
Yep, but that's because it's completely disengaged. So when you're releasing that clutch slowly and you're pushing your gas, you know how it starts slowly going?
Because it's slowly starting
It's
to
slowly
catch.
starting to come together, and at that point it's spinning. It's spinning and touching and rubbing. But to the point that once it has that full contact surface, because there's a pressure plate pushing it,
Yeah.
that's when you have your full transfer of power and one solid mechanical joint kind of thing.
When we heard the car, we just heard that,
Yeah.
but it was constant. Like it wasn't. I don't think it was Kovalainen feathering the
No,
throttle.
I don't
No,
think so
that's
either.
what I was wondering,
More of a
too.
fail-safe, I think, at this point, to either keep the revs up because we heard that these engines rev excessively high. So for an engine that revs this high, you don't want it to be idling at 400 or 1,000 RPM.
That's a rod going 50 kilometers
Yeah,
away.
exactly, right? So these engines, I believe a normal idle is 4,000, 5,000 RPM. So when it's sitting at that high, it just has to maintain those high revs.
Oh, because it doesn't.
enough.
It
Okay.
doesn't have.
Yeah.
And then the fail safe them. Yeah, okay. All right, that makes
But
sense.
like I said, it could be transmission or it could be clutch. Like I'm not exactly sure how. Like, I don't know if it's a conventional clutch is, which I don't believe it could be. Could be not. But if they're using this semi-automatic transmission that we talked about earlier, it could be one of those packs, those clutch packs inside of the transmission that we're slipping now. So there's a big variable.
Oh, I like how much I'm learning about this. The biggest thing I think I've learned is how little I know about engines.
There's a lot of technical words though. That's a problem, right? That's why I gotta try and remember that. I can't just start, just telling
Like
you
even
pressure
power
plates,
transfer.
friction discs, and you know
Yeah.
flywheels. For some people, that's like, oh, that's obvious, that's common, but you got to think about not everyone knows.
No, it's cool, but I'm hoping some of the listeners could get something out of this too. And then the people who do know what you're talking about, they understand. And the people more like me and maybe Will, you're kind of more in the middle, I think, because family stuff. But getting something out of it as well. But yeah, no, we can keep going.
That was lap 29. You said.
Yes, sir. That was lap 29.
So anything between there?
Oh,
and,
yeah.
lap 37. You got.
No, but the only other thing I was going to say is, and I'm learning how much road cars are not like Formula One cars. More and more, I learn that every show.
I mean, they'll become like Formula One cars after the technology that Formula One has gets passed down to the road cars.
Exactly. The road cars we have today are probably much closer to the Formula One cars that we had
2004, 2005.
Yeah, or even older. Some of that technology's made its way to road cars by now.
Yeah. Actually, I have here Schumacher going in for intermediates during the safety car on lap 34.
I put so many cars coming in for intermediate tires, 6+.
But didn't he get a penalty for that?
No, that was the one of the HRTs.
The HRTs, okay, yeah, because lap 35, I have a bunch of people coming in to be
believe
forced
that was-
off of the wets.
I believe that was D'Ambrosio who came in before the safety car was in. Like they said, the safety car will be coming in this lap as they're coming around to start the lap. So he comes in to change tires.
Thinking that it was okay.
So he changed it too early, but because he didn't actually start the race
with
on the
wets,
the full wets,
that's what
according
they
to the
wanted.
regulations,
Yeah.
he did get a penalty. But everyone else comes in immediately afterwards, as Nick said, to get on the inters.
Yeah, there was so many guys coming in, and I don't know the
And Button
liveries
was-
as well as I do for
Button was one
modern
of those
Formula One.
people.
that pitted.
Yes.
Yep.
So that would be.
But he was also making a crazy amount of moves at that time too. That's
Yeah.
the double pass and everything. Sorry.
Well,
that-
the double pass was just after. him.
at this point. That's his fourth stop for the inters, right? Because they
Excuse me. I think it was his 5th.
No, I'm pretty sure it's fourth.
Nope. That was his fourth because his fifth is lap 38. That's what I have here.
Okay, so yeah, because he.
Oh yeah, I'm ahead of you guys. Sorry, I'm after the. Sorry, Are we on 35 right now?
I'm around 37, I think.
Yeah,
Okay.
37,
You guys go and I'll
36, 37.
I'm fucking everything up. I'll just jump in when I feel I'm worthy.
All right. So they're still on a full wets. Button makes the double pass at the hairpin at the time.
Yep.
Everyone comes in pits for the inters. I think because it's still full wet in the first few laps after the restart. So they come in, everyone comes in for inters. They come back out, and Button's still making more moves. But that's when he makes contact with Alonso, which beaches Alonso and prompting Buttons.
At turn 4.
Yeah, at turn 4, which
3-4,
prompts Buttons once again his 5th pit stop.
Yes, that's why I was getting ahead, because I realized I was reading stuff that was underneath my notes that said safety car at lap 36 to 40. So,
And that was for the beached Alonso.
exactly.
All right, and after that we
Alonso with the DNF too. Don't forget to let.
yeah.
Was he beached or was he teeter-tottering? Looks like he was sitting
the
on the
back,
curb.
The back was down, the front was up. He's not going anywhere.
He was, and then we seen a Marshall try and push him back onto track.
He's like, no.
and
Jump on the front.
yeah.
Jump on the front.
I was thinking more, like, I don't know how much damage there was to the rear wing because he hit the wall pretty hard on impact, but I was thinking it'd be better to just push him backwards so then his back tires have some grip.
Well, he couldn't. He was against the wall.
No, he had moved himself forward because the Marshall was behind him trying to push him forward. So he had driven a little bit forward away from the wall. I thought it might have made more sense to go back, get more of the car off of the teeter-totter, and then try and drive straight. But I guess at that point it was like, fuck this.
The team probably said to get out of the car.
I'm
Don't worry
done.
about it
You
at that
try.
point.
Yeah, you try already. I try 3 times.
All right. So, and then after that, I have on lap 51.
Before we get there.
Okay.
Before we get there. How fucking good is Vettel at restarts?
I mentioned that. Well, in my notes, I wrote that down every time.
Yeah, I think we
Good
talked
start,
about it
good
in the
start,
in the
good
F1
start.
update last year, talking about the 2019 season and some of the races. Like, he is just,
He plays the mind games.
he's so good. He never does it at the same spot. If you're going to have a race where you get to, multiple safety cars and restarts at the same spot, he'll always go a little bit later or a little bit sooner than he did the time before that. I don't know.
100%. Like that showed this entire race.
I don't think there's anyone better than Sebastian Vettel at driving with the lead. And I
mean,
know this is the worst race to say that about, obviously, with what happened later, and we'll get to it, and the spin, but I really might confidently say that he might be the best guy at driving with a lead.
Fair. That's fair, but I do have to admit, Dick, just to counter that point, just to be that guy.
That's why we got you here, Will.
On the first start, and I believe on the second safety car restart, when Alonso was in second, he was all over the back of him.
Yep.
Yeah.
But that is also Alonso.
Yes.
So
that is a very true.
You hopped to 51. I on 40 here. The safety car went in.
yeah,
Okay.
I know,
Yeah,
and I just wrote us a note. It was very grouped on the restart. It was a very tight grouping.
super tight. DeResta collided with Heidfeld on lap 43.
Okay. All right, you got that down. So is there anything else I'm missing here between then and 51?
Yeah, DRS was enabled on 46, and I was just when I seen that, not again, we've maybe done it too much, but it's just something I don't think would happen in modern Formula One. I feel like there was no way that DRS is coming back on unless it's dry as a motherfucker out there, and it was not dry as a motherfucker out there. It was dry in a line where you can drive in one line, but if you got to pass somebody, you need to go off that dry line.
Yeah.
So I don't think, personally, not that it mattered clearly in the end, but I don't know if it was safe enough to enable DRS at this point.
Well, no one died from it, so.
Fair. That's a good. That's fair. And then the only other thing I wanted to bring up about DRS, just because it's kind of a perfect time now with what I just said, but when I was watching Monaco, Brundle was really excited about DRS, and normally I'm used to Brundle hating DRS, chirping DRS, and not.
Well, DRS was a new thing at the time. Right?
Exactly. So it was very interesting to hear, next week in Canada, we're going to see a double DRS zone and it'll be great. It'll probably be so much passing. And I was just like, wow. I'd be very curious to hear Brundle's opinion nowadays and what he thought about that at the time. Because, I mean, they were excited because it was, more overtaking and more this, but maybe they didn't foresee how artificial DRS overtakes would become
over
the next 10 years.
I feel when they first introduced it, it was kind of a stopgap measure that wasn't supposed to stay for the long term until they found a fix.
Yep.
But then it worked so well, they just kind of kept it.
Mm-hmm. I don't know if they're going to keep it going forward past where we are now, but I don't know.
But in fairness, it has influenced a lot of series. We see it in the Super Formula. They've got like a DRS kind of thing or a push to pass. IndyCar's got a push to pass.
Yeah, push to pass is a little bit different because that's more to do with the engine than it is the aero.
Mm-hmm.
But I know what you mean. It has been implemented in other series. Button was still making moves on lap 50 before we get to 51 and 2 there because this guy didn't stop. It was I feel
rocket ship.
Consistently had like a 1.5 second pace advantage on Vettel. Like almost all race was always gaining. I don't know what it was. The tires and everything was just working great for Button on this day.
It wasn't like he was braking that much later, or visually didn't look like he was braking later or anything. Like even towards the later end of the race when he managed to pass Schumacher, who at the time was in second.
Yeah,
it's just like 2 corners later, and he's got like a 5 car length lead.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's
It's insane the kind of pace he just happened to have for this race. I don't know if that's just he loves those settings where it's just that in between, or if it's just speaks to him as a driver in the wet, growing up in the rainy British Isles and stuff like that.
I'm sure he had more practice than some.
Yeah. It just makes me wonder how Lewis could have done if he was still in the race. Whether it's just the McLaren car setup to really sit those settings, or
it would have been interesting because Lewis would have been farther back then, or ahead of him at the time. I mean, if they had never crashed, obviously, but because Button was making his way up through the field and Lewis was ahead of him. So
definitely would be interesting. So I have lap 51, Weber pits onto the dry tires.
Yep.
First one to go onto the slicks.
Mm-hmm.
First set of dries.
Risky, but it worked.
Risky, and then I believe it's later that lap or lap 52 or something. You see a few other drivers, including Button, also pit onto the dry tires. So that's his sixth final stop for Button.
I was just about to say, yes, that was when the final stop took place, was when he put on the slicks for 6th. And the slicks for 6.
Yep. And then I have on lap 53, we have a Massa's crash after also pitting onto the slicks. Tries to avoid one of the HRT cars after exiting turn 3. I
think it was 3. Honestly, on that one, I'm not 100% sure. I know where you're referring to. He just hit a wet patch, caught some hydroplaning.
Yeah, the HRT is slow out of the corner just because it's kind of a slow car, really.
Yeah.
So he has to kind of go wide onto the wet part of the track to avoid it. Hits the wet part, spins, hits the nose into the wall.
He did a pretty good job of keeping it straight and getting the car back straight and then finishing out the lap.
Yeah.
Just shitty spot to do that.
But that was a crash that cost him a good points finish. And then I have nothing until lap 56, at least notable for me. You got anything, Phil?
Well, we can go back here. Lap 52, Still, I believe it was. He ended up getting suspension damage and he was out of the race, so DNF.
For who?
Who was that?
Still?
Oh,
Satil.
Okay, yeah.
My bad.
Satil.
I just wrote it wrong, so I pronounced it wrong. But then just after that, lap 53, that's when Vettel put on the super softs. So just right after that.
All right, so the leader, he pits for super softs. So then...
But yeah, 56 after that. So.
I have the crash with Nick Heidfeld in a front wing. Runs in the back of Kamui Kobayashi. What would be, I don't know if it's turn 2 or 3, how they number it.
I think it's technically 3.
But Kamui goes wide through the corner, gets on the water, has to check up on the throttle. Heidfeld into the back of him.
Had the momentum and drove right in the back of him.
Right into the back of him, breaks his front wing and ends up driving over his front wing. And
I felt bad on this one. Because
really?
I felt bad because it genuinely just looked like when we were watching it, he just had more speed and he was just like, oh, let's go.
Yeah.
And the guy in front of him just didn't have it. So
he didn't have the confidence.
No, and he didn't have the time to slow down and check up and not run into the guy in front of him. So I felt bad a little bit for Heidfeld on that one. But yeah, and it was a bit of a scary crash with his wing flying underneath the car and him going out.
I think that might have been a reason for one of the changes where they went to the lower front wings.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely possible, but you still see that happen. It happened to Ricciardo at the beginning of 2019.
Yeah, but you got to be fair, though. Ricciardo's was a little bit different because he hit a pothole. So it, pulled him down and under. Down and flipped it under.
Fair enough. Yeah. I just meant it can still...
The Sierra grate or whatever the fuck it was that he hit
either way,
in the grass.
it was something that wasn't a car in front of him. It was something that was lower than the front wing. I know what you're saying. Yeah.
Well, so that means Heidfeld out. Kamui gets away. He's fine. He finished the race. We do see after the race, though, the other stuff that doesn't happen after the camera cuts the button, catching the leaders and stuff that he gets involved in. But we'll talk about that later. I have anything between. You have anything between that and lap 59?
Well, 57 to 60 was a safety car.
57 to 60.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I have on lap 59 was the Marshall was getting hit.
Yeah, so that was at the same place that this crash with Heidfeld had happened,
he's
and
picking up the debris.
They were picking up the debris from where the wing had went underneath Heidfeld, because, like I said, he was approaching turn 4, and he got lucky, man. And the commentators made a comment about it, the fact that runoff was there. He was able, and because he had no brakes, he was just sliding, and then once the wing popped out from underneath his car, then he had a little bit of brakes, but he was able to stop in time without hitting any walls or anything there too. So, but yes, the Marshall was running out onto track. If no one has seen this, please go go watch the Canadian Grand Prix 2011 first. Maybe skip the rain delay if you don't want to watch the whole thing. Or even just watch it from lap 25 onwards, to be completely honest with you. You could probably just watch lap 25 to the end, you'd be all right. But yeah, go watch this Marshall almost getting hit.
Yeah, he goes out on track to pick up the debris, trips and falls right in the middle of the track, right? I believe it was Kobayashi. Was it Kobayashi, or it must have been De La Rosa?
Kobayashi, I think, was the second car coming up where they checked up the brakes. I don't know. Either way, there was two cars that almost hit him.
Yeah, he's coming up, so he falls in the middle of the track as one of the Saubers is coming up. And like the Sauber kind of goes right because he doesn't sure if he's going right, goes left until they sort it out. He doesn't get hit. He stands back up. But then another car comes, and I believe this is actually one of the Team Lotus guys. That's the green cars, I believe it was.
Yep.
And he just comes up, and you just see a massive lockup trying to avoid the guy.
It reminded me, like I said, the only one that I can think of is the one that was in Singapore 2016 when the Marshall was running down the straightaway with Nico Rosberg's behind him coming 200K. But I don't know. I feel bad for Buddy because I'm sure it was embarrassing as fuck.
They're all volunteers too.
But well, no, not all of them. Not all of them. Some of them are professionals that come over from Europe.
Okay, yeah.
That train those volunteers. But I just felt bad for him because, like I said, it was a bit embarrassing. But at the same time, it's like, man, figure it out.
You're that guy.
Yeah, figure it out.
You're thanking God, like, oh, thank God Twitter isn't a thing right now.
Exactly, right? Well, it was, but not quite.
Not as big.
Nowhere near. But I don't know if he was quite dupe of the race, but we'll get there in a bit.
All right, so lap 60 was the safety car in, right?
Yep.
And then I'm gonna skip to 63 just because there's a little highlight. Maldonado's out. Another race where Maldonado isn't finishing.
Oh, one sec. Just before we get to 60 there, I thought it was interesting when Jensen was chasing up, and he was in, I think, 5th at the time, maybe 4th, and he came on the radio right away, and he was asking.
As of lap 57, he was in P4.
Okay.
So right before that safety car.
Perfect. Because just the comments he was making about Vettel's tires. What tires is Vettel on, and when did he pit? And then he wanted to know because he knew that's the guy that I'm fucking racing right now. When I get by everybody else, that's who I need to worry about. And what are his tires going to be like at that time compared to what my tires are going to be like? It just shows the fucking mental capacity that, I mean, not only does it take to be a Formula 1 driver, but Jensen has.
All right, so anything there between Ad and 63 other than Maldonado?
No, I just wanted to get that in. Oh, Maldonado, what he
crashed out. He's out.
Oh yeah, my bad.
Out on 63. Had to mention it. It's Maldonado.
He went out in Monaco too in the race we watched, or I watched part of before we did this. Yeah, I guess he does have a bad rap for a reason.
And then I didn't have anything down between 63 and 70. Just because it was just good racing between all of those laps.
Yeah.
Good, close racing.
Oh, it's incredible. The three teams, the Mercedes, the Red Bull, and the McLaren. The talk about it, Phil. The dirty air. Where lack of.
What dirty air? What are you talking about? What's dirty air in this generation and era?
Exactly.
The only thing I've noticed was this during lap 65. How many times did Weber miss a chicane earlier in the race, and then that one?
Right? I wrote
And
that
it
down
was-
too. Weber mistakes twice.
And because on that lap, on that 65, that's when Button actually gets into third place.
This guy ends up on the podium. Get the fuck out of here.
So Button takes third once Weber missed that last chicane. But I also noted Button was only 1.5 seconds back 2 laps later.
1 seconds back from
1.5 seconds back from Vettel.
Yeah, that's what we were talking about earlier. How quickly
He was very fast.
he got from being in the fight with Schumacher and Weber
Yep.
to now being
Who were 4 seconds off.
being on Vettel's ass 2 seconds.
3 corners later, I'm 1.5 seconds off of Vettel.
No
I
big
would
deal.
love to know how Lewis would have done, because was it the car? Was it his skill that on that day in the wet with those tires, and did the stars align, or was it McLaren on that?
I think some of it has to lie on Vettel. Like he, as the commentator, like Bart Brundle and them mentioned, he's being really easy with the car, not trying to push it off to the edge too much.
And I mean, yeah,
So when you have Button, who at this point in his career, he's raced F1 for years,
Quite
and
a
years.
while.
Yeah, at this point, he knows what the edge of his car is.
2004 was his first year, I think, maybe even before that.
I think it was
Anyway.
maybe a bit before, but yeah, he knows what the limit of his car is. Patel doesn't quite know that yet, so he's taking it a bit easier.
Yeah.
Especially on those soft tires, and making sure not to go offline. And Button's just raking in the time, and so I don't think it's all Button being an absolute monster today. Part of it is Vettel just not being quite all there.
Quite the Vettel that he was prior and after,
Mm-hmm.
showing he's human.
Yeah,
I think the commentators mentioned
he
something
can bleed.
similar to that. But yeah, that close battle between those 3 teams was one of my favorite things that happened in this race too, aside from, I mean, like I talked about the Schumacher pass, but and Phil, I mean, you kind of gave your spiel, but I had even wrote your name down there just to kind of say, like, yeah, this dirty air thing is really, because you talked about it when we were watching it, and I'm like, wow, like it really made me think quite a bit.
Closer racing. And
How much closer it really is.
Yeah,
yeah, a significant
And they got
amount,
their
enough to be able
curves, they
to
got
visually see it. You know what I mean?
DRS and all that stuff. And when you think about it, the reason they introduced all these 2009 regulations at the time when we were watching this was to remove the dirty air and make racing closer again.
Yep.
That was
And
the
now-
idea.
And now we're getting back to that point again with the 2021 regulations, right?
It's just at some point, this is not a conversation to have here, but what's more important, speed or racing?
Yeah.
You have to make that decision.
You
Or
can-
what's
yeah,
the
you gotta-
what's
you
the
have to-
balance?
Mm-hmm.
Find the balance, because you can go one direction. You can go better racing, and then you can make the best cars that can literally run as quick as they can go an inch away from each other, or you get the fastest cars and you blow away lap times, and you talk about how fast and innovative the sport is. But again, different conversation, I think, for more of an F1 update,
Yeah.
which we'll get to in the future.
Oh,
But yeah, Weber passes Schumacher there at the Wall of Champions on lap 67. I don't know. Well, I'll get more of my thoughts on Weber in a little bit. And then lap 70, the big moment of the race. I think everybody's moment
I'm trying to remember the corner name. I think I want to say it's 6.
for where this happened.
I think so.
I think you're right. Yeah, 4, 5, 6, maybe 7. 7 or 8.
Somewhere around there, middle of the track. It's the left hand, right hand, before the bridge.
Pass me that book over there, Phil, and I'll tell you exactly where it was in 1 second. Just
from above?
yeah. Just
Formula One circuits from above.
there you
28 legendary tracks.
But it was
go. Designed on
it was
Google Earth.
the left and right before the bridge straight.
Look at you go, Will. It was 6, 7.
There we go.
The 6-7 turn.
Well, Vettel, feeling the pressure of Button behind him, makes a mistake, brakes too late, carries too much speed in the corner, goes wide, slicks on a wet track, don't mix, almost, I'll give him the almost, spins the car, Button takes the lead. 6 pit stops, crashing with his teammate, a drive-through
Penalty. Yeah.
What a fucking race.
to a victory on the last lap.
Just absolutely fucking credible.
Yep. Hell of a drive. Hell of a drive.
stuff
He's
of
like
legends.
a prize fighter out there.
I had to get one of those.
You wanted to use that.
I wanted to real bad. I don't have another one that really kind of fits the moment, but yeah, just what a drive, what a day.
Fantastic.
Don't give up. If you're gonna take anything away from this 2011 Grand Prix, and not even to just apply it to Grand Prix and racing and karting and whatever else you do, but life, don't give up.
Yeah.
Because you never fucking know.
That 6 bad hands he's been dealt, and he clawed every inch back.
That, yeah, and not only that, it's you never know, not to get, negative to say you want this on other people, but you never know what's going to happen to the other guy. Look what happened to Vettel, the top dog, the top guy at this time. And I don't know, it's just one of those things. It was an incredible moment, but I want you a little bit, Will, to talk about you experiencing this with your dad.
Yeah, I mentioned it a bit at the start there, but this is one of the biggest memories that I have of watching Grand Prix racing, because this is big when I was getting big into karting, and me and my dad actually wanted to stay up and watch the races for when they were away in like Japan and stuff. Right, we were trying to watch as many of the races this season as we can, and we were big Lewis fans at the time. We loved McLaren, we loved the way the cars looked, and at the time, my favorite driver was Jensen, just because of the way he carried himself.
Yep.
So watching this race and the hatred me and my dad shared for Vettel just because he won everything, and at the time he was just kind of that cocky up and comer that sometimes you see like Kyle Busch or whatever in NASCAR.
For sure.
And then you see like the last lap, the comeuppance with your favorite driver and your favorite team giving him it's just the feeling we felt when he made the pass.
The real fist bumps.
It felt like we were in that McLaren garage in our living room.
That's incredible. I wish I had a story like that. I mean, I have some stuff watching Schumacher back in the day, but not quite. Nothing, not even remotely close to that. And the only other thing, this isn't necessarily related to the Jensen win, but similar. I talked about it at the beginning of the show too. Just a story with, and Younger will remember if he's listening to the show, former guest and member of Pro Wrestling Look Back. When we were there in 2018, we went to the Grand Prix. We met these two American guys. Jesus Christ, I can't remember their names at the moment, but we met them on the day we get to do the walk around the whole pits and everything, and it was fun. They showed us around. They showed us places we hadn't been and where we could go and what bus we were supposed to ride and all this stuff. Anyway, long story short, they've been to the Canadian Grand Prix I think for 30 years in a row. Ooh. They went to every one. So they were telling us about the 2011 Grand Prix and how they were there, and it was pouring rain and it was this and that, it was cold, it was whatever. So they left.
Oh.
They left the race.
Wow.
Because it was so bad. 2 hours rain delay.
Yeah.
Oh, this is whatever.
I got flights to catch.
Yeah, whatever. They're from the States. They've been to multiple races. I guess they're back at, I don't know if they're at the hotel or somewhere, but they said they could hear the cars back on the track, and they're like, what the fuck? They're back on track. Like, they didn't know. And I remember him telling me that story, and me knowing how good this race was at the time, not watching it like we did tonight and today, but just there was another guy behind me who would kind of not eavesdrop, but just listen to the conversation as this guy told me, and he's like, what, you left? And it was just like people around had heard this conversation, and they were asking him like, you left that race, the 2011? Yeah, oh my God, how did you leave, and this and that. So I don't know, I just thought that was a story worth telling. Is not only did I meet a couple guys that had been to many of these races, but these guys were at that race and left because the rain was so bad, and then didn't come back, but heard the sound of these V8. Give it to me, Phil. What kind of cars?
What do you mean?
The engine.
I lost train. I was gonna say something else.
Oh, V8. Sorry. They're just V8.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, you send it with V8s, but no, I was gonna say you bring it back to a full circle. It's like you said, it's life. You don't give up and don't lose hope because you never know what's gonna happen.
Exactly. Like it could be something major. It could be something little, like missing a Grand Prix.
Yeah. Unless it's something now where this is the race that forced them to introduce a time stoppage to the Grand Prix.
Yeah.
Which is that a good thing? Do we like that?
I mean, at least it guarantees we're getting a race finished within 2 hours, at least.
Every time, and you're not going to have any of these crazy long races. How much did we really enjoy the 2 hours of sitting here?
It wasn't that bad, honestly.
I got to be honest, it wasn't that bad.
Honestly, if they put on the Antiques Roadshow, I'd probably fall asleep.
Yeah.
in that time, in that delay time, they say, "Oh, we're just gonna do a picture-in-picture and put the Antiques Roadshow in there." I
And-
don't mind.
And you'll
I
have to
probably
go.
would have fell asleep.
You'll have to go back and listen to the
I would've- I
commentary.
would've
to
missed-
to get that one.
I would have. I would have missed the little dog on the Force India car, bro. The little plush dog.
Or the bird with the red shoulder.
Yeah, the bird with the red shoulder.
That's a blackbird.
A black beak red shoulder. Yeah, I don't know. But no, it was good. I actually I had more fun watching that 2 hours of not racing and wet track than I probably anticipated. But I just meant, yes, it was probably a good thing, like you said, Will, that this race kind of enforced and established the timestamp that we now get in Formula One races going forward.
Yeah, so it's even if what happened in the race might get lost to time, at least it's always has that mark on its F1 history.
Mm-hmm.
That it does. Should we get into our moments of the night, guys, or what do you want to start
Let's get
with?
the finishing order.
Oh, yeah, see? That's
See?
All right.
Will's on
so as
Will's
we
on
already mentioned, Jenson Button taking home the win, Sebastian Vettel in second, Mark Webber in third, Schumacher in fourth, Vitaly Petrov in fifth, so good from him, Felipe Massa sixth, Kamui Kobayashi seventh, Jamie Alguersuari in eighth, Rubens Barrichello ninth, Sebastian Buemi 10th, Nico Rosberg 11th, Pedro de la Rosa 12th, Victor Antonio Liuzzi. I can never get it right on the first try.
it's okay.
13th, Jerome D'Ambrosio. So not a bad stop for the Virgin Cosworth and the HRT Cosworth, getting just outside that top 10. And in 14th, Timo Glock in 15th, Jarno Trulli in 16th, Narain Karthikeyan in 17th, Paul Di Resta being the first driver to not finish in 18th on lap 67 is when he retired. Pastor Maldonado, as we mentioned, I think I said...
Come a little closer to the mic there, Will.
Oh, sorry.
You're dropping away.
Sorry, I'm just trying to look at my phone.
Yeah, I hear you.
I think I said 62. I said 63, but here it's on the Wikipedia page. It says 61 where he retired in... So he's retired, so he didn't technically finish. So
Okay.
There's only 18 finishers, but he retired lap 61. Nick Heidfeld out, Sutil, Alonso, Kovalainen, and Lewis Hamilton.
There you go. And your finishers for the 2011 Canadian Grand Prix, as read to you by Will there. One little stat I'd never got in there. Capacity for this track, over 100,000. Pretty cool.
Yeah, that's not bad.
Cool.
It's got a casino in the middle.
It does. I've been. Very nice.
Gold-plated windows.
Oh, yeah, I guess I should mention here. Karthikeyan finished 14th, but was given a post-race 20-second penalty for cutting the chicane and gaining an advantage. So, there you go. Might as well get that out of the air.
Yeah, no, definitely. No, that's good. And I mean, the structure of this show will come as the time comes, and we'll, work out the kinks and polish and go forward. But this is something we've brought over from the Pro Wrestling Look Back we've been doing for 2 years at least, as and every Pro Wrestling Look Back show that we've ever done. And that's the moments of the night. These are moments that are going to stick out to us, stuff that we're going to remember in 5 years, 5 weeks, 5 minutes from now. What are, 3 things and maybe some honorable mentions for stuff that's going to stick out to you when you think Canadian Grand Prix for Formula One 2011. I'll let you guys decide who wants to go first.
I'll go first here, and I'll get Phil the time to collect his thoughts.
Again.
All right, so I'm just going to go in chronological order. No big order for me here. First one, Button hitting Lewis. Is
this number one? Are we starting with number one, or are we going to...
just kind of going chronological order throughout the race.
That's not what these are, though, Will. That's not what we're doing right now.
Nick likes the
These
3,
are
2, 1.
These are memorable moments, not chronological moments throughout the race.
Well, yeah,
these are your memorable moments.
These are memorable
Let
moments.
me finish. These are your memorable moments for what you think in 5 years, 10 years, 5 minutes are going to stick out. I don't want chronological order through the whole race.
No,
I want
that's what I'm
3
saying.
moments.
That's what I'm saying. 5 moments, and I'm giving to them in the way that they happen. They're 5 moments, and
But that's not what I'm asking for. I'm giving them the way that they are. The best moment, the second best moment.
I think that's what he means.
No, he said he's going to give me them in chronological order, as if like first lap.
I didn't say this one's more memorable than this one.
Anyway, Jesus Christ, Will. Just go.
All right, fine. I'll rank them real quick here. Okay. All right. So I guess my fifth being the least memorable for me, being the Alonso getting beached due to the contact with Button. that caused the safety car that brings out Button's fifth pit stop. Yeah, it's just kind of memorable. Alonso's been in the race for a long time. Getting beached like that,
Somebody that good in themselves getting beached alone is pretty significant.
Yeah, you don't see cars getting beached like that, especially on a curb. But the front of the wheel, the car up in the air, it's
and Alonso, some 2-time world champion at that time.
Yeah, and then so number 4 for me is going to be the Massa crash. Just the way he saved it is going to be memorable because it's not the first time that he saves a car like that. I believe it was in 2012 in Singapore. Where he has another save.
I know exactly the save you're talking about. I can't remember. I think it might have been Perez around him at the time, but or maybe even Hulkenberg. I don't know. But anyway, I know what you mean in Singapore.
Just the way he saved it, had to take avoiding action real quick. Like this is at the time where Massa was still at the top of his game and arguably the first or second driver for Ferrari. It wasn't clear cut just yet. My third moment is just going to be the red flag. It's a bit predictable, but the red flag is like. It defines this race and what everything that happens afterwards. The red flag is going to be one of the most memorable moments, if for some people not the most memorable moment of the whole race.
It probably is, for sure. I mean, the fact that, universally, if you had to poll people who have seen this race in the past, the first thing they're probably going to tell you is the fact that there's a 2-hour rain delay. So I completely agree with you on that one.
My number 2 then is going to be Button hitting his teammate Lewis. That just sets everything off. That sets the tone for this entire race, and it happens on lap 8.
Yep, right at the beginning. And 2 of the top guys.
And it's what you did. It's the thing you do not want to have happen the most is hit your teammate. We saw that happen this year in 2019 at Brazil between the 2 Ferrari drivers and everything that happened with that.
It's one of those things that we'll talk about it at the end, but really makes this race and this drive from Button one of the best ever because it just is added on to all the list of 10 things that Button did that are insane to win a race anyway. Starting in last, pitting 6 times, crashing into your teammate, like all these things that are just are not recipes for winning Grand Prix.
All right, and for me, the most memorable moment is the Vettel spin. Like that is for me the number one thing that I will always remember this race for. Just the moment with my dad in the living room and Button winning and just seeing the McLaren garage and everyone cheering. It's
like
that's
you said,
what I will remember.
You felt like you were a part of the McLaren garage in that moment.
That's got to be my number 1. That was my most memorable moment.
Oh, that's good. And sorry to get so heated before. I wanted your best moment, not the moment that happened last.
That's all right.
That's all. No, but seriously, that's all I was trying to say is I didn't want it chronological from the beginning until the end.
All right, it's fine.
I'm going to give it to you in chronological order.
At this point, it's 2 on 1. You should have just said that earlier and said, fuck you, Nick. You've done it anyway.
We're going to do it subconsciously. We won't even tell you. It's a thing between Wills and Phils. Okay, want me to go or do you want to go?
Up to you.
I'll take it because I feel like you have a little bit more to say, a little bit more to...
Possibly. We'll see. Maybe not, but we'll see. Yeah, it's fine. You go.
I don't know how to put this. Not least memorable moment, but something that
honorable mention.
Yeah,
that's what I do. I do a couple honorable mentions.
Just because of the fact that like it's gonna stick out. Just because I seen this, the dog on the Force India, the plush dog on the Force India, with all this rain, this chaos, all this everything that's going on. There's a team that sees the positive, sees the light, and they just put this little plush dog
with headphones.
Headphones, just chilling on the car, on the F1 car, with it pissing down rain.
That reminds me because we were, as we mentioned, we watched in the Monaco Grand Prix earlier, and they had a red flag in that. Yeah. And they're mentioning during the red flag, you can do anything to your car. You can do this and this. You can even put like a clown nose on the front. And I'm like, well, they put a teddy bear on the front.
Yeah,
of the car.
Why the heck would they do that?
So that was good. That's good. I'm just gonna always remember that. And it didn't, at that point now it was Force India, not no Racing Point.
No, and it's funny you say that because when you brought it up earlier, I thought you were talking about like the painted car dog that was on the side of like the Caterham or one of the other Sauber. Oh. There was like a painted bulldog face on the side of the Sauber, and I didn't realize. And once you said that during the break, I totally know what you meant now, and it's the little bobblehead bulldog that they had on the car there on the Force India.
So I guess another honorable mention would be Button's recovery, Button's drive. Just having it, like you said, dealing with those 6 pit stops, having a little minor collision and whatnot. It's amazing how you can see someone recover with such pace and have that confidence to continue going and not giving up. Not losing that foresight of what he wanted to accomplish and what he was trying to accomplish. So like that for me was. That's something that you're going to remember. I'm going to remember that he's the winner. This is what he dealt with to get to that spot. It wasn't an easy shot. It wasn't him leading the whole race. Like we see it on some of the current races these years. Like, not saying that it's not entertaining, but it seems like when someone gets out ahead, they're ahead.
It's nice to see somebody work for that win too, and shit happened in the end with Vettel.
Yeah, absolutely, too, right. But that's the thing. Like you said, you don't know what's going to happen, when it's going to happen, where it's going to happen. All it took was 2 tires to hit that small little slick of wet patch of asphalt to lose and break traction, and just give him that small kick out to lose.
Yeah,
that
man.
Position. That's all it takes.
Like we were saying before, I think this race epitomizes racing mimicking life, and like this race mimicking what you can apply to life in general.
Yeah, absolutely. Second most memorable moments. I'm gonna say
not chronological.
No. I don't want no heated. I don't need no heat getting up in here again. The final battles between the few teams with like Weber, Red Bulls, and sorry, I forgot now. Petronas, I guess you can say Mercedes and whatnot. It's just watching how much these guys pushed back then. In these conditions is like, okay, yeah, it's good. And then it was just consistent. It felt like at any moment in any turn, one person could be passing another. I felt like there was always potential.
It looked like a kart race.
Yeah.
It looked like it reminded me of karting.
Having the Sauber up there in second for so much of the race.
Yeah, and that's like, you don't hear stuff like that. Well, obviously not with the names, but with the lower teams. You're always talking about the midfield team or the backside of the team, the back end of the team.
It's the big 3 nowadays, right?
Exactly, and I guess that's how the sports evolved and changed, but
and don't
not
get me
necessarily for the worse, but not necessarily for the better, but they're at like a neutral point. But that's a different topic. That's a different thing.
It's a mix of both. You got to keep in mind at this time too, you did still have Vettel winning a lot. It did take some of these crazy rain races to get, like we had with Germany 2019.
Yep. That's
sometimes you got to throw a wrench in there to
absolutely, and you never know what that wrench is going to do. Hey.
Easy there, Honda.
That all being said, the racing was definitely more competitive and more.
Oh, absolutely,
a lot more exciting
in 2011.
But like you saw, like also, like I said, with Weber going off, missing that chicane, it wasn't like there was an issue when he was rejoining. It wasn't, he's not giving the place back. It was immediately, he fucked up. He went off. That car's back in front of him now, and now he's working for it again. And sure enough, that next lap, he's pushing for the same move or whatnot. You know what I mean? So it's good to see that. I felt like that battle is going to be something I'm going to be remembering near the end. A
lot more veterans, I think. Sorry to get you off there.
No, it's okay.
At this time in 2011, you didn't have as many. I'm sure there's obviously was still some of them, but as many young guys. You had more guys that had been around a little bit longer. You know what I mean? Vettel, I guess, still was young at this time, but not fresh out of the market like a Lando Norris or a Charles Leclerc, some of the other guys that are newer.
Yeah.
In modern Formula One.
Who did they mention that was like a fresh rookie?
Well, Perez, but we didn't see him.
I think it was
Buemi might have been.
Yeah, some of the Toro Rosso guys probably. I'm
early
trying to
at that
remember.
time.
I think there was another guy.
I'm not sure.
Satil, I think it was.
Adrian Satil. I'm not sure. Timo Glock.
No, it was DeResta. It was DeResta.
Oh yeah, it was DeResta.
DeResta. Yeah, that's who.
That makes perfect sense. But anyway, sorry, your number one.
The number one, it's kind of straight cut now. It's just the Vettel spin because that's
not surprised one bit.
It's almost not a moment of relief, but it's a moment of holy shit, that opportunity's here. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like the possibility of a spin out or a crash or something happening, a tire being degraded to the point of puncture, it happened. You know what I mean? Like that 1% chance that those tires touched the wet and he spun is it happened. You know how it is with CS:GO unboxing. You have that 1.01% chance of getting that rare item, exclusive item, and at this point right here, you have Button chasing him down, putting pressure. You know how it is, right? So
to use a reference
to the
sure,
point, to the point that he pushed him to break the pressure, and he cracked. Whether he cracked or whether he didn't crack, and he just made a mistake. Regardless, the mistake was made, and it was seized upon. So
no, it's without a doubt the moment of the race, moment of the night, whatever you want to say. You guys both picked the right ones.
Driver of the day, I'd have to say.
Yeah.
I know I'm jumping ahead. I know.
We're gonna segue into that.
I was thinking like the modern day where they have the fan vote, who it would have been, but
oh no, if it was a modern fan vote driver of the day, it probably would have been Massa or somebody random as fuck, because that's usually how it goes down.
Yeah, it would be Buemi, yeah.
Somebody completely like Massa, because he had a couple nice passes, but he didn't win.
Probably it would have been Schumacher. Watch. It would have been right now. If we did a fan vote of the day, it would be Schumacher.
It may. No, you're probably right. It would have just been whoever doesn't win, because Lewis won the championship this year, didn't get voted fan driver of the day once, but wins the championship. Was never the driver of the day.
Still bringing it up.
Anyway, that's the past or the future, or whenever you listen to this, it could be. Who knows? I guess I'll get into mine. Moments of the night. I got a few honorable mentions. I gotta grab my book here. Give me a sec. One of the honorable mentions is just the rain and the craziness that was the rain, and just how Mother Nature became a character of this race, and kind of took over in a way. Another honorable mention: Lewis and Alonso both being like having DNFs was insane. Two guys that the year, 3-4 years before were competing hard.
Both from the same driver.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I didn't even think of the fact that Button was the one that hit both of them. I just mean two, multiple, Lewis not yet at the time, but multiple world champions and just amazing drivers, former teammates. I don't know, kind of a stat when you have two guys of that caliber, both, going out of the race.
Yeah.
That Schumacher pass, I got to bring it up. That Schumacher pass that I talked about when he passed at the start of the race on lap 5 or so.
I think it was Webber making the pass on Schumacher, though, wasn't it? It was Webber going.
Yes, sorry, that's what I wrote. I wrote Webber pass, and I was thinking it was Schumacher, but no, it was Webber making the pass on Schumacher.
It was,
or even one of. It might not have even been. It might have been Rosberg. Was it a Mercedes for sure?
I'm pretty sure it was a Mercedes, but
either way, that pass by Webber was incredible at the beginning of the race. So those are the honorable mentions. Okay, number 3, moments of the night for me. The 2-hour rain delay and the length. And I enjoyed it. We talked about it. We thought, there was going in, you didn't expect to enjoy, obviously, a 2-hour fucking rain delay, but it was more enjoyable than I expected, and it made this race what it was. Like I said earlier, the reason, this race is talked about so much is because of all the shit that happened in the 2-hour rain delay. It makes it so you could kind of watch 2 races if you want. It felt like we watched 2 races.
Yeah. We could have watched all the Lord of the Rings in the time we watched
Day 48, I have somewhat satisfied my craving for F1.
Right? And for the people listening to this, we are recording this after watching that 5-hour race. So keep that in mind, too.
Currently 2:24 in the morning.
That it is, yeah. Jesus.
It's on a Saturday, don't worry.
Yeah, well, it doesn't matter. But number 2 is the Button and Lewis colliding with each other, because I think, like Will mentioned a little bit, it kind of changed the pace of how this race was going to go down. And then I think, whether it's true or not, Button was a little bit shaken up, flustered after this went down, and I think this is what caused the penalty. I think him being shaken up by what had just happened with Lewis.
I just hit my teammate, he's going to think I ran him into the wall, and I don't want to fight my teammate. Lewis is a great guy.
Not that I've ever driven one, but I don't think it takes much to get unfocused in driving a Formula 1 car. You get your mind somewhere else.
In the wet?
Yeah, in the wet, especially in these circumstances and these weather conditions. I'm sure it didn't take much to lose focus for half a second and have a little.
You have experience of driving in the wet.
Yeah, and I ain't doing 300 kilometers an hour, so I can respect these motherfuckers for that. And then. Number 1, like you guys said, is the Vettel spin. and the Button drive, it has to be number one. It's going to be a memorable moment for the Canadian Grand Prix in general forever. Type in Canadian Grand Prix on Google. You're going to see pictures of Vettel spinning. You're going to see pictures of Jensen Button. That all being said, that is kind of my segregate number one. Because you guys both chose that, I have another one that I didn't really get to fit into this list that I would love to make it my number one because the way we watched this, and I'm gonna remember what when we say memorable moments, you think about what you're gonna remember in the future. I'm gonna remember watching it here with the two of you. Now I'm not gonna remember what happened in 2011. So tonight, I think the biggest memorable moment for me in watching this race is how fucking good Schumacher was.
Yeah.
He blew me away, and I was enthralled, captivated by just, obviously it's Michael Schumacher. He's fucking incredible, and we know he can race Formula One cars, but he just did a really good job of not getting into any bullshit, no major mistakes, no accidents. He just raced his race. I felt horrible that he didn't end up on the podium in the end here because of
the Rainmeister.
Yeah, that's true too.
But did you take in that how confident and how calm he was during that whole break?
Talking to 50
everyone,
million
and
people.
I'm not trying to like chirp on him or
no,
whatever.
That's
you know
a good
what I'm
thing.
saying?
It just shows confidence.
It's more of the fact that he stayed relaxed. He stayed in a mental zone to keep him sane, to keep him ready for what may be coming up. You know what I mean? Because we didn't know if it was going to be canceled or if it was going to be going on. In theory, we didn't know.
We had no idea.
So for him to be able to, go
to
up to his engineers, go over there, go over here, and just telling stories and having the camera on him, and then to be just
10 minutes. That's
back
the
in the
only
car.
time you get. They tell you, okay, in 10 minutes, you're on the track driving the fucking car.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's the only time you get. So some of the other guys are calm, collected, waiting for that. So that 10 minutes feels extended, like they've been relaxing the whole time. This guy's out here, I'm sure he would have had a beer if he was allowed. You know what I mean?
Well, Kimmy probably would have.
But, yeah, no Kimmy at this time, eh? This was when Kimmy was gone.
Yeah, he comes back next season.
Yeah, we didn't talk about that at all this show. But yeah, that was kind of mine because I wanted to mix that into my list, but I felt like I had to get the Vettel spin up at the top there. So if I have to pick a 1B or a 1A, it would be the Michael Schumacher drive because I'm going to remember how well his drive was here in this race.
I'll be honest, the way you were introducing that point, I thought you were going to pull that. It was the whole watching it with you guys.
That's
what I thought you were going to
leading
go
to that. I was ready to say, that's really cute, Nick.
Yeah, no. I mean, I will remember watching it with you guys. I was just kind of more driving home the point that because I didn't watch it live and I knew the winner, I knew the spin from Vettel, it's not as going to be as necessarily memorable when I think about this race because of the circumstances that took place when I watched it. Mm-hmm. And that's, I already knew who was going to win. I knew Vettel was going to spin. I didn't know that Schumacher had an incredible drive, didn't have any mistakes, and almost finished on the podium for the first time in his comeback. I think that's why it's sticking out to me as a memorable moment because those are the things that I didn't know about this race going in.
Yeah.
So should we get to...
Good point, man.
Thanks. Thank you. Should we get to the lights and the Dupa and the star of the race?
Let's do the Dupa and the star of the race and then do the lights last so we can kind of come to are we doing mutual agreement for the lights or
I like
individual?
I think we might have to do individual.
Right.
Individual. Okay.
But I think you should explain a little bit of the Dupa, what that means, and the star.
Well, Dupa. How do you want me to explain it?
Well, I mean...
Well, okay, so Dupa is a Polish word. It's a... I don't want to say it's a slang word. It is a proper not verb, or...
Adjective? Noun?
Yeah, it's a descriptive word. It's a word for behind, your ass, your butt, your bum. This is a word that you could use to your kids. You could say, "Go wash your dupa."
Yeah. Oh, you don't have to get too detailed.
I'm just saying. Like, so don't think that like we're saying like a bad word here. It's a word.
Yeah.
But it's a word to describe.
And we can
not
swear
the
on this
best.
podcast anyway.
No, fuck yeah,
Even if it
absolutely.
was a bad word, it's okay.
You know what I mean?
But it's
Right.
It's not.
I'm not fucking scared. All right.
Yeah, you're not offending anybody with this. With
Okay.
this.
Kurva.
It's not
Okay.
It's not. Matara.
But yeah, no, Dupa. So we're gonna use Dupa as
worst performance
worst
of the
performance or worst driver or worst situation that I guess put it into perspective
for that day.
Yeah,
for that race for specified Grand Prix that we're talking about.
Right now, we're just gonna use a star driver.
Yeah, we'll come up
the race.
We'll
for
come
now.
up with something in the future. We'll see.
Because that's for now. But do you want me to give you mine too, or Will?
Yeah, let's go in the same order. Will,
all right.
Dupa, and Star.
So you might disagree with me on this one, but my Dupa of the race is gonna have to be Nick Heidfeld.
Oh, yeah, okay. I mean, he had a little bit of a mishap there, even though I told you I felt a little bad for him.
Yeah, I mean, I understand where your sentiment's coming from, but at the same time, you was following that guy for a couple of laps. He makes one mistake. You know what's going to happen when you put those two outside tires in the wet.
Yeah.
And you just get back on the throttle. Like, at that point, you're just not thinking.
Fair enough. Yeah, I know.
And he had another incident a few laps earlier with another driver. I believe it was.
DeResta.
Yeah. Which caused him to retire.
Lap 46.
Yeah, which caused that DeResta to retire, I think, was it?
Yeah, probably, because he had already changed his nose once or twice. DeResta was getting, we didn't talk about it much, but he was getting feisty through this whole race. Like, he was trying to make moves that maybe shouldn't have been attempted. But again, he knows a lot more than me.
I mean, so I got to give it, like, I mean, and the race wasn't that bad. Like, there wasn't too outstanding. It wasn't like Maldonado took out the leader or whatever. Like, you'd see in some other races. So, I mean,
shout out to my boy Ocon.
He's not, I wouldn't say he's the worst driver on the grid or anything, but in this race, I'm going to have to give him the award.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I think it's valid. Good. It's warranted. What about the Star?
Star, I think you already know where I'm going with this one. It's going to be Jensen.
Vettel. Oh, sorry. Wow. No.
Jensen.
It's Jensen. Like, you can't, in my mind, you just can't. I mean, the drive he had, the win, how he got the win, and the circumstances, like, that's the stuff of legends.
Yeah, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. I agree completely. It's a good pick. Phil?
So you might disagree with my Dupa. It was Kobayashi. Just for similar situations like you explained with Highfield, that, you know, he's bumping into here, bumping over there, spinning off the track. Well, not spinning off, but he did cut on the one corner. I believe it was turn 1. He kind of went off, but then also did like that really slow turn with Highfield, which, I don't know, it felt like he had the little bit better line to go, but I don't know. I just didn't feel like he was that good of a driver. It seemed like he was lacking something out of the grid that the other drivers had. Personally, is what I seen. But
yeah, no, that. I mean, anybody who's
it's tough. It's tough.
Can't keep the. I know it's a wet race, but anybody who can't keep all 4 wheels on the track.
But it's not even that. I mean, like, it's hard also to judge at this point, because this is the first time me ever seeing these majority of these drivers, other than, you know, the big names that we all know of. So seeing someone like this lower end guy sitting in second place, but then just gets bumped down, like, it's like as if he's meant to be down there. It just makes you feel like, okay, well, why are you making these mistakes?
Does he get some pointers or some some credit from you because he was in second place in the first place?
I think that was more of a fluke. That was like Lance Stroll being like at the top there. You know
Fair
what
enough.
I mean? Like, that's, it just happened to be with all the chaos, the safety cars, the pit stops and everything. He managed to stay in second because why? He didn't take a pit stop. So he was on wets the whole time. So when the safety car restarted, he was still on wets.
It's like when Giovinazzi was leading in Singapore in 2019.
Yeah, it just happened to be. You know what I mean? It all fell into place like that. But at the same time, in order to keep that place, you gotta fucking show it that you want that place. You gotta show the drive.
Yeah.
You had to battle it, and it felt like he wasn't doing that. And then, you know, the slow turn 2 is just so weird to see. I don't know, but I'm not the racing car driver.
No,
he
exactly.
Clearly is. They is.
Mm-hmm.
It's a different story. It's a different game out there on that track, especially in the wet rain. You don't even you feel like it's a SpongeBob meme, and you just see his toe coming through the bottom of your shoe, pushing the gas pedal. That's how they're pushing the gas. Yeah, big toe to push the gas pedal on these cars.
That
on
one
the
went
rain.
right over my head, boys.
You haven't seen that meme?
No, I have not.
Oh,
I'm not a meme king.
Well,
Anyway,
that sucks.
Sorry, man.
I'm
told
joking.
you.
I'm joking.
An old soul.
Send Nick all your memes, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
Please don't.
At the look back.
Please do not. What about your star? Of
My
the race?
star, you're gonna be surprised. Good old Shumi.
Nice. I like to
Fair
see.
enough.
I'm gonna say it just because of how you explained it. Seeing a living great star at his time coming back and seeing what he could do.
Yeah.
And so, with that being said, it gets me excited and kind of looking forward to going back a little bit more when that was the dominant Ferrari phase with him banging out every race. You know what I mean?
2002, 2004.
That's
Those are
so-
going to be some fun races to watch.
And that's what I'm kind of looking forward to. And seeing him in his prime, I guess you could say was his prime then.
Yep,
And
absolutely.
So, yeah. But, yeah, those are mine too.
Those are good. Those are good. So I guess I'm up next. My first ever dupa for the Formula One.
Can I just say I like how your little intros with everything? Like you just you top it off.
Well, thanks, man. I
Instead,
appreciate
like me, we're like, yeah. So our first one is fucking this, and you're like, my first ever dupa of the race is.
Listen, you're going to make me blush here. but no, the first ever dupa of the race, of the pro wrestling, Jesus.
Oh.
Hold on. Technically, it might be the first ever dupe of the pro wrestling look back.
Oh,
Formula One look back.
check me.
Easy on the levels there, boys. I don't want to do that much editing. But no, yes, technically, yes, you had the first ever, but this is my first ever
fair
dupa.
enough.
I'm gonna have to go with Weber, and I know this guy got a podium in this race, but the amount of mistakes that he did make, and the fact that he passed Schumacher to get that podium.
He cut the chicken.
He cut the chicken. I just, I don't know. It's not that he had the worst race out there. It's just I felt like this was one of those races where he finished in the position that he finished because of the car that he was in, not because of the drive that he had.
Fair enough.
The
I'll give
car
you that,
took him to that position then.
I think so, yes. I think if Schumacher was in the Red Bull and he knew how to drive it, obviously, and Weber was in the Mercedes, I think Schumacher would have been on the podium here. So it sucks to kind of see that happen, and it's not like I think Weber's a shitty driver. I just dupa of the day for me, and you know he made a couple mistakes. We talked about it at the Wall of Champions, and I think one at the hairpin.
I think there was 3 times he went off at the Wall of Champions,
So-
or two or 3 times. He just cut.
Does that warrant being on the podium? I don't know. Maybe for some, but maybe not for others. I don't know. Not my favorite performance of this race, but
I mean, in fairness, he did have the bit of the comeback at the very start of the race. He did have to try and claw his way back. Just
he
in
did.
fairness.
That's what I mean. It wasn't like I thought he had the worst race of the day because I don't want to necessarily always give my dupa to the guy who just had the worst drive of the day. I just don't necessarily think that he deserved to be on the podium in third place, getting a medal, getting a trophy, when some of the other people around him had better Formula One drives on that day. In my opinion, at least. I don't know. I mean, that's all we're doing here is giving you our opinions of something that happened almost 10 years ago. So it's not, our words are not gospel, but it's just opinions of what we think. But I got to go with Mr. Michael Schumacher for my star as well, man, because that was, I already had it written down before you even said that, so it's not like I had written that down, I think, before the race was even over. I had made that decision. But like everything I had said earlier, I remember it because it's not something I knew. I didn't know that he had such an amazing drive in this day. And honestly, aside from, I think, Russia 2014, no, I don't know, Russia 2012 or something. One of these races I watched with my dad once. It was like the first race in Russia, and he told me about the track, and he told me Schumacher was back racing in a Mercedes, and I was like, what? It didn't make any sense to me because I knew Schumacher had retired at the time, and I knew him from Ferrari, so I don't know where I'm going with this story, but yeah, Schumacher is the star for me of
justifying it. That's always
of the day. But yeah, the lights. We'll get to the lights.
Let's get the lights.
This is our version of the star rating, like we do on the Pro Wrestling Look Back. If anybody's familiar with that show, we do the Meltzers on that show and how many Meltzies it is. On this show, we're going to be doing lights, just like lights out and away we go at the beginning of the races.
So before we start, just a quick question to clarify: do we do half lights or no?
I'm thinking no, but if you want to do it, I mean,
all right.
Depends.
We're not doing half lights, and this is going to set the standard. I feel because this is the first show we're going to set a standard. We're kind of right.
Yeah.
What we feel is a good five.
What do you think, though? I'm open to having this discussion on the show.
For what? What do you mean? The amount of lights?
Half lights or full
Well,
lights? I think it
okay.
should be full because they're lights.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you got to think about it. There's 2 for each, like, housing.
So you're saying it should be 10 lights?
That's what I was thinking. You want to do half so you can get more of a specific overall thing. Then you can, I guess you could say like 7, or you could drop it down to like 4. But then I don't know. I guess it's still at the end of the day, you're still going to be valuing it somewhat.
Were you doing halves? Is that why you were asking?
No, I wasn't going to do them. I'm just going to ask just to be sure.
Okay.
Just because I have an idea of where I want to put it. I'm just not quite sure whether it deserves one or the other for the other.
Okay.
Because, like, as I mentioned, there's no set standard for this.
No. This is for rewatchability. That's what this is for.
Rewatchability.
Yeah, it's for something you're going to go back and watch first. If you were to tell somebody else to watch this.
Okay.
You know what I
And
mean?
then I'm going to have to give it 5 lights.
5 lights?
I'm going to have to.
Okay.
I'm going to have to give it 4 lights.
Do you have... Wait.
Reason being...
You go
there,
first.
Will?
I just want a reason from Will.
All right. I can give a reason. It's just as many of my reasons have been mentioned before, and the moments and everything we've had.
Of course.
It's part of it is like, for us also a Canadian Grand Prix. It strikes home for us, right?
One of the reasons why we chose to do this one as the first one.
Mm-hmm.
And again, just the 4-hour long race and 4.5 hour if you watch it on F1 TV, like including interviews and stuff at the end, and it just everything it stands for. Button's greatest win. Like, you can go interview him today, and he'll still say my greatest win is Canada 2011.
Yep,
that still stands. That hasn't changed in forever, and it's got so many moments, as I mentioned, personal reasons for me. So I have to give it that 5 lights. If someone wants to know what if I want to go back and watch an F1 race, give me an F1 race, and it's going to be this race.
Yeah. No.
If I have to relate it to wrestling, it's kind of like if I want to show you what wrestling could be, the best wrestling you can see, I would probably tell them to watch Kenny and Okada. If I'm going to relate it to a wrestling. Just because I know it's a long match, and sometimes you don't really want to give someone the longest thing you can get. But
that's a different I don't want to get too deep into this, but that's a different comparison for me. I would say, like, I would tell them to go watch WrestleMania 17.
Okay, fair enough. I would give you that, but it's just my idea is I want to show you what racing, the best of racing, what it has to offer. This thing has everything. It has that last lap pass. It has the incidents. It has the safety cars. It has the rain. It has the unpredictability. And similar to the Kenny and Okada match, it has those hard-hitting moments, those
and
big
it's long
spots.
as a motherfucker.
It's long, yes, and that I get for some people.
Yeah,
that is
not
a
that that's
turn-off.
bad. I'm just being funny.
It's just it has those moments that show you what the pinnacle has, right? It has everything in it, and that's why I got to give this that 5 lights for me.
That's fair. No, that's a good reasoning too, Will. And I'm sorry.
You gave me the look. That's all I say. You gave me the look. You gave me the little nod and the look, and I thought that was my cue to go.
It's my bad hosting on my part.
Hey, you do a good job, okay?
I appreciate
Don't
it.
ever think.
We've been in here.
Don't ever
for
think
like 6
twice
hours
about
at
that,
this
bro.
point. We've been in here for 6 hours.
Yeah, we have been in here a long time.
So, like I said, I'm gonna give it a 4 out of 5. Only reason why I'm not giving it a 5 out of 5 is based on the fact that we're doing this because of rewatchability. If I were to tell someone to go watch this 4.5 hour race, halfway through, not even halfway through, a quarter of the way through, that if that person isn't into the F1 like we are, they're gonna drop out of it. They're gonna be like, why am I waiting for something? Or at this point, it's gonna be, you want to watch it, sure, but if you don't want to and you don't have to, don't watch the rain delay part.
Yeah.
But overall,
if you can get that specific, then absolutely.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, but that's the thing. Like, if someone came up to me, like Will said, if someone came up to me and just said, yo, what's a good F1 race I should watch? And this is the one that came to my mind, I would straight up just say, yeah, just go watch the 2011 Canadian Grand Prix. Why? Oh, it was a great race. A lot of shit happened. And it's our Canadian Grand Prix.
Canadian race,
you know what I mean? And it's like, oh, okay, sweet. But then at the same time, if they open that up and the first thing they see is a timestamp of 4 hours, they're going to be like,
yeah,
is this what F1 races are? 4 hour long? How do you watch this on every other weekend? Well, I fucking wish it was 4 hours long every other weekend.
Sometimes. When the races are good.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, so that's the only reason why I don't give it a full 5 lights out of 5. I give it the 4 out of 5, but it's still a strong, very strong 4 out of 5.
No, that makes a lot of sense. And honestly, that's the reason I gave it 3 stars. Or 3 lights. I said stars. Is that specific reason that you just said. If I'm going to tell somebody to go watch this race, I'm worried that 2 hour, and I'm getting technical, because if I'm going to tell them to go watch it, I'm going to tell them to go watch the whole thing. It's a big gap. It's a long time to have that gap be in there in the middle. And so as far as rewatchability for me, I'm only going to give it 3 lights because it's a long one. And unless you're a diehard and maybe you have some nostalgia for that specific race, then it would be tough to get through, I think. Mm-hmm. It would be one of those tougher things that's just, I don't know, tough. You know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%.
But I don't know. I think for me, going forward, it'll be interesting to see where these lights kind of end up. Because I don't know. It's been fun doing this show with you guys, and I'm very curious to see what we can get out of going forward and doing more shows in the future.
That's why I mentioned we got to kind of figure out how we want to do these lights. We got to set the precedent now. So when we watch a more quote-unquote boring race, how are we going to replayability for it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, preferably no France 2019s. That would be.
We've already agreed that it can't be within a year of the most recent races. How about that?
Well, how about even if it's in 10 years, we don't do France 2019?
You really don't want to watch that one.
It had some good moments. It had some.
Yeah, there was a few in there, but
why is it that I remember that race and I actually enjoyed it?
I find it hilarious because I was in New York City when that race happened, and I watched the whole thing in my hotel room and didn't go explore New York City. I watched a boring ass Formula One race, but that is not what we did today.
No, it is not.
It definitely is not.
We watched a really good Formula One Grand Prix.
Very good driving, very good racing car driving race.
Worth it.
Amazing.
Through the rain, through the wet, through the cold, whatever else you want to say.
Yeah, I'm sure you'll remember the day we recorded this major snowstorm in our area. So it was appreciated for you guys to come over and do this. But
so if anyone's in the GTA area, you should know what this Saturday is like right now.
Yeah.
The Saturday of the what?
If you're listening to 18th? This down the road,
18th,
then you're saying, I don't care. Shut up. But it is what it is. We appreciate you for checking out this show. This has been the Look Back Podcast, the first ever Formula One Look Back show, the Canadian Grand Prix 2011. If you want, you can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at the Look Back Show. You can send us a message over at thelookbackshow@gmail.com. You can subscribe on iTunes, Podbean, Spotify, Google Play, and the new YouTube channel, The Look Back Show. Check out that one. If you want to follow us on Twitter, I think I forgot to say it at the beginning of the show. Got all mixed up at the beginning of the show tonight. Follow me at Salsa, SCELSA.
At Honda Tech Phil.
At Lateral G, LATERELG.
If you want to get a t-shirt, head over to teespring.com/thelookback. We got t-shirts, mugs, stickers, and more stuff on the way. Like I said, this is the Look Back Podcast. This has been the Formula One Look Back Show. For Nick,
Phil,
Will,
stay classy.